Naruto the Iceman of the Senju clan. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Endless Torment. What happened just now? While Tochikan was breathing quickly, he was rapidly analyzing the situation just now in his mind. Illusion? That kind of ability that was obviously false, but made him really feel like he had been killed once. What else could it be but an illusion? But I clearly didn't see her seal. Tochikan has absolute confidence. After receiving such a heavy blow from him, in that case there would be no chance that the other party could form a seal without being discovered. Then, it must be the power of the Sharingan. All conditions have been considered, and if none are met, the problem can only be attributed to those scholar eyes. It is indeed a very tricky ability. It can actually make me fall into an illusion in an instant. The scene where he was about to succeed flashed through his mind, and finally the scene was fixed on Quan looking up. But, the Sharingan is certainly not omnipotent. Otherwise the Uchiha clan would have ruled the entire ninja world long ago. Sight. Just don't look at her. Finally Tochikan made such a decision. Although it may be a little unaccustomed, it is still better than being hit by an illusion at any time. However, such a thrilling confrontation was inexplicable to the audience in the stands. They only saw that Tuoki Kunmingming only needed to stretch forward a little more to win the game, but when he was about to succeed, he suddenly stopped there and froze, and the next second he began to pant heavily and dodge Quan with difficulty. Counterattack. What's the situation? Did he do it on purpose? That's right. We were about to win just now. What are you doing? Isn't this a shady story? That's it. Of course, those who make such a fuss must be ordinary people who don't understand anything. Those who had heard a little about the Sharingan, especially the ninjas from other villages, were all watching silently at Izumi, who almost succeeded in counterattacking. Uchiha's Sharingan is really terrifying. Of course they could see that Tochikan's sudden pause was a sign of betrayal. It was clear that he had fallen under the illusion of the Sharingan the moment they looked at each other. It's just a pity that the little girl is too young and her physical condition is too different from that of her opponent. Otherwise, the winner would be decided immediately. Many ninjas were thinking about their own things in their hearts while paying more attention to this game. Especially Tochikan of Tsunade village. Many people want to see how this fierce looking young man plans to deal with Uchiha's Sharingan. This game can also be said to be an extremely rare opportunity to learn about Sharingan intelligence besides war. It is undoubtedly of extremely important significance to these ninjas from other villages. He as expected, he is still a bit too young. There is still a big gap between him and normal genin. On the rostrum, the third Hokage seemed to be smiling bitterly, but in fact the pride in his eyes was so obvious that he wished everyone in the world knew his current mood. Sharingan the fourth Kazakage stared deeply at Izumi, with some incomprehensible meaning flashing in his eyes. Whether he is envious or not, let's talk about it for now. He suddenly remembered the rumor from a few years ago. It is said that the Ninetales rebellion that led to the death of the fourth Hokage was controlled by the Sharingan. This is why the top management of Konoha drove the Uchiha clan, who were clearly an inch pillar, to the outermost edge of the village. The purpose was obviously to keep them away from the management center farther away. But he just thought about this kind of thing in his mind. Now that Konoha village is powerful, if he wants to save Tsunade village from the quagmire as soon as possible, he must rely on the power of allies. Cool. After resting for a while, the breathing of the two people in the venue gradually calmed down. However, in the expectant eyes of the audience, this time it was Quan, who seemed to be at a disadvantage in every aspect, who took the initiative to attack. The weak figure stepped forward with an indomitable momentum. Tochikan, who was quick and sharp in his attacks, became a defensive player and stared at the ground the whole time. He only relied on the-spot reactions to resist Quan's attacks and refused to look up even when crisis arose. One glance. Ping ping pong ding ding ding. Hey, what on earth is that guy from Tsunade doing? Even if the opponent is a little girl, this is a game that involves the reputation of two villages. That guy is too irresponsible to do this. That's right. When I saw him taking action so decisively at first, I thought he was a reliable guy. What are you guys from Hidden Sand Village doing here? Just get out of there. That's it. More spectators began to make noises of dissatisfaction, and even the spectators who originally thought it didn't matter began to feel that something was wrong. Fortunately, there were some knowledgeable Konoha villagers among the audience, and soon someone couldn't help but stand up. There is no shady story, you just don't understand, and don't see it. That's right, if any of you have better eyes, just look at that little girl's eyes and you will know. When the agitated audience heard this, although there were some people inside who were deliberately instigating trouble, most of them were still dissatisfied with the unreasonable performance of the candidates. After hearing this, some people immediately narrowed their eyes and stared at Quan to observe. Don't tell me, it's really true. That girl's eyes are actually red. The blood is red, and it looks so scary. Is it scary? I think it looks pretty. That is to say, the little girl is pretty to begin with, and with such a pair of eyes, she looks very artistic and beautiful. Just like this, it spreads from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. The audience, who had just been full of complaints, quickly turned to the debate about whether Izumi's Sharingan is good or not. Few people even asked the candidates of Tsunade village, why does this happen? Hoo-ha. 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 In the court, Tochikan, who tried to fight without watching his opponent for the first time, really felt powerless. Although the opponent is only as high as his own chest, now that the offense and defense are switching, Quan's attack speed and strength cannot be blocked. He was soon overwhelmed, and only by relying on his strength advantage could he barely maintain the situation of not losing. But it's just about not losing. As long as the opponent's Sharingan is still there, he must not raise his head even once. The competition now is whether you can't defend yourself first, or whether the opponent's chakra will be exhausted first. Ding 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 chi. 2 lines of blood were well. Tochikan suddenly let out a dull groan of pain. After a quick attack like a storm, Quan's Shuangayu finally broke through the claw blade's defense, leaving a gash on each of his arms. Ended. Suddenly the opponent's voice came from behind. What? Puff. A blood-stained crescent moon came out from behind and penetrated the chest. Ahem. Woo. Tochikan lowered his head in disbelief, coughing up blood while watching the crescent moon slowly pull out, only to feel that all the strength in his body disappeared without a trace. Hoo-ha. 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 Another illusion? When exactly? Exclamation mark. He obviously never raised his head. However, Shuangayu has already arrived once again. PFFT. He tried his best to block the fatal blow with his right arm, but he still couldn't avoid the second attack. Laugh. He. Gudu. He. Gu. This time the throat was cut again. Large streams of blood emerged from the throat and poured into the trachea. You lose. Hoo-ha. 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 When Tochikan came back to his senses again, his face was pale and sweating. Half a minute. In less than half a minute, he experienced 3 extremely tragic deaths. Time and time again, I couldn't figure out when and how the other party let me fall under the illusion. Looking at Quan standing in front of him with a pointed weapon at his neck, he felt that in just half a minute, his spirit had been tortured to the limit. Although I feel very frustrated, even though I know that if I do this, I will probably never be able to raise my head again for the rest of my life. But I surrender. He didn't want to continue this kind of battle that was tied up and seemed to be trapped in an endless cycle of torment for a minute, a second, or an instant. The third game is over. The winner is Izumi Uchiha. Chapter 77 Female Puppet Master. Hey, Uchiha. When he was about to leave, Tochikan, whose face was still a little pale, hesitated for a moment, and finally asked unwillingly, can you tell me? I have never looked into your eyes. How did you cast the illusion on me? Quan looked back at him, paused, and looked down at his hands. Upon seeing this, Tochikan also hurriedly lowered his head. Claw blade? Slowly raising his hands, he looked to the opposite side and found that Quan's eyes were indeed moving up with his hands, and then he firmly stared at the claw blade and observed it carefully. This is? Soon, Tochikan's pupils suddenly dilated and shrank. He saw that the almost invisible figure of his opponent was occasionally reflected on the surface of the claw blade. Is that okay? Tochikan's face was full of outrage and disbelief, and he almost doubted his knowledge for more than 10 years. Such a small picture. The other party is still so far away, and it was still in the midst of a fierce battle. However, Quan just nodded slightly, then turned around and quickly left the venue. A very powerful little girl, with a great fighting mind. On the rostrum, the fourth Kazakage was silent for a while, before he truly sighed sincerely. Of course, with his strength Izumi's tactics can be seen, and it is precisely because of this that he will feel more and more the depth of Konoha village. It was really hard for him to believe that such exquisite fighting skills could be thought of and produced by a 7 or 8-year-old girl. Hehe, the third Hokage next to him seemed to be smiling modestly, and the folds on his face could kill a fly. She is still a little too young, and it is indeed a bit difficult for her to take the Chunin exam now. If other Uchihas had such a talent, he would definitely not laugh so freely. But Izumi is different. This little girl is the most special Uchiha to him, the Hokage, and to the entire Konoha village. Very wonderful. In the player tunnel, after Izumi came up, Senju Mayuki first praised her, and then immediately started to treat her. In fact, I originally wanted to teach this girl a few words for working too hard, but after thinking about it again, winning is a good thing after all, so let's make her happy. I'm not in the way, you have to compete later. Don't move. Senju Mayuki explained a little while treating her. It's not like you don't know that opponents like Maki who specialize in ninja tools are no threat to me at all. What's more, there are 2 groups of players in the middle, so don't worry. Oh. Hearing this, Quan had no choice but to close his mouth obediently and looked at Senju Mayuki's focused face for a while. When he saw his eyes moving, he hurriedly turned his head and looked towards the competition field. The 4th match is between Konoha Ninja Village's Hanayan and Suna Ninja Village's Yangryuka. The 2 players are entering now. Swoosh, the 2 figures appeared in front of the examiner almost at the same time. The difference is that the one from Konoha village is a boy, while the one from Sunagakure village is a young girl. So, the examiner looked around and found that both of them were staring at their opponent closely without making any requests. He immediately waved his hand and said, "Start." Whoosh whoosh. Although the person opposite was a girl, Yan still had no sympathy for her. He raised his hand and threw 3 shurikens at her, and then quickly ran around the field without waiting for the result. Yang Linghe on the opposite side also reacted quickly. She turned over to avoid the shuriken, and then immediately squatted on the ground, and took out a scroll and unfolded it. He quickly formed a few hand seals with his hands, and then pressed hard on the scroll. Bang! Gala la la. With a puff of smoke, a strange humanoid object was summoned and floated beside her. He's actually a puppet master in the contestants' tunnel. Senju Mayuki couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise. What surprised him was not the profession of puppet master, but that in his impression, most of the puppet masters in Sand Ninja Village seemed to be men. After all, as a girl, it would not look good if she carried such a big puppet on her back like Kankuro every day. Is that a puppet? Quan also had some curiosity on his face. She had heard of the puppet master before, but this was the first time she had seen him in person. Wow, what is that? It looks so scary. Many spectators in the stands saw this kind of thing for the first time. They just thought that the appearance of the puppet was too ugly, and they immediately started talking about it. Fortunately, there were a few knowledgeable people in the crowd. After explaining this, the noise of the crowd was finally stopped. In fact, it wasn't just them. Yan in the field was obviously startled by this sudden appearance. After all, he was just a genin and didn't know enough. Facing a puppet master opponent for the first time made him feel a little helpless, and he didn't know how to deal with it. Gala la la. However, Yang Linghe on the opposite side didn't give him any time to think about it. After seeing that he was just running around without any sign of actively attacking, she immediately controlled the puppet and took the initiative to attack SHHHHH. Because he didn't know the characteristics of the puppet, Yan had no choice but to retreat quickly. It wasn't until the puppet suddenly stopped, after rushing to a certain distance, that he looked at the distance between Yang Linghe and the puppet with a clear conscience. It seems that the opponent's control limit is so far. Fortunately, I'm not a pure melee type. Next, Hua Yan continued to engage in long-distance confrontations with Yang Linghua within this distance. Shuriken, kunai, fire escape. All of a sudden, all kinds of weapons and ninjutsu were flying all over the sky. However, 5 or 6 minutes passed, and both of them were exhausted from running all over the place, but they still failed to hurt each other even once. Ha ha. Stopping again, Hua Yan looked at the opposite Yang Linghua, who was also panting. When he was wondering if this duel would end in a draw, he suddenly saw Yang Linghua take a deep breath and suddenly take out a gun. He took out the kunai and then rushed towards this direction in a straight line. Crash! The puppet that lost control fell to the ground and fell into a pile. Want to decide the outcome in close combat? Hua Yan couldn't help but lick his lips. Although he felt a little slighted, it was indeed the only way to come on then. He turned his right hand to change the position of the kunai and held it tightly and then rushed towards the opponent. Ding ding ping. Ping ping. The two figures staggered and retreated very quickly, and kunai kept colliding, making crisp golden sounds. How can a puppet master defeat me in a head-to-head battle? In just a few rounds, Hua Yan determined that the opponent's physical skills could only be considered to be at a barely qualified level. Immediately, he was determined, and the speed and strength of his hands exploded instantly. Ding, ding, ding. Knocked down Yang Linghua in just a few clicks. Forced into danger. Chang. Another heavy blow with such force that Yang Linghua's right hand trembled, and she could no longer hold the kunai and flew out. Ended. With a loud shout, Hua Yan stepped forward and stabbed the kunai towards Yang Linghua's neck. However, the moment he aimed at the opponent's neck, he saw that Yang Linghua not only did not panic, but looked at him extremely calmly and said the same thing. It's over. Wrong. It's a scam. It's almost as close as a hair's breadth. Hua Yan stopped his momentum abruptly, and then he felt a slight chill coming from his neck. Go. His eyes slowly moved down, and he saw that the left side of his neck had been attached to a handful of shining black spikes at some point. When? Exclamation mark. And also, this woman, does she really want to kill me? If he had been a little too late just now, his throat must have been penetrated by now. Because at first I heard my puppet making a clatter sound, and I took out the kunai and gave up the puppet in front of you, so you subconsciously thought that when there was no sound, it meant that I had no more power. Controlling the puppet. Before Hua Yan could ask, Yang Linghua took the initiative to explain. At the same time, her chakra connected to the puppet not far away again, and then in front of him, she put the spikes back into the mouth of the puppet that she didn't know when it opened. So that's how it is. The resentment in his heart disappeared instantly, and then Hua Yan simply raised his right hand. Examiner, I lost, and I'm convinced that I lost. The fourth game is over. The winner is Yang Linghua. Chapter 78. Shining on the stage. Oh. Wow. Fantastic. The audience in the stands also gave warm applause to the two. Not just because the battle scenes were intense enough, the most important thing is that this time most of them understand it. Some with good eyesight even saw with their own eyes when Yang Linghua took out the spikes, and when she controlled the spikes to fly over and stick to the opponent's neck. Wonderful, fantastic. The applause must be louder. Hehe, your little girl really taught the candidates of Konoha a lesson. On the rostrum, the third Hokage couldn't help but nodded. He also heard what Yang Linghua said. Because the puppet had a voice at the beginning, I subconsciously thought that no voice means no control of the puppet. This is indeed a problem that many newcomers and even some veteran ninjas sometimes make. It's just an inconspicuous little trick. How can I be so praised by you, Hokage-sama? Although the fourth Hokage next to him said this, the expression on his face was very obvious. Everyone could see that this guy actually appreciated the praise of the third Hokage. The fifth match, Dozu from Sand Ninja Village versus Sotasa from Sand Ninja Village. The two players are entering now. Although from the same village, however, one of the two candidates used instantaneous body and the other used tornado, a device tied with a bandage that is almost as tall as his body. The other is holding a huge fan that is taller than a person. Moreover, after entering the venue, the two people looked at each other with very unkind eyes. This game between Tsunade and Tsunade was filled with the smell of gunpowder from the moment it entered the scene. Hey, isn't this the former 10,000 years number 2 Dozu-kun? Saotisa took the lead in launching a verbal attack. Dodds was not angry after hearing this, but counterattacked with an even more disdainful tone. You are already a ninja, and you always show off your grades in ninja school. Is this all you are proud of? The smile on Saotisa's face froze for a moment, but soon she sneered again. I will let you know later why you have always been number 2, and why I can always dominate you. Haha. Dodson hurriedly removed the equipment from his back and took over the words sarcastically. I don't believe you don't understand that when you were in school, it was just because the ninjutsu you practiced was more suitable for getting high marks than my puppet. Otherwise, why would you suddenly take out a fan that I've never seen you use before? It's not because you know in your heart that the illusion that accounts for half of your strength has no effect at all against my puppets, so you want to enhance the power of the ninjutsu as much as possible. Boom. The bandage puppet, which was as tall as a person, hit the ground heavily. Seeing the other person's face darken instantly, the smile on Dodd's lips became even more contemptuous. You appear so arrogant on the surface, but you're actually just covering up your guilty conscience. Saotisa's face instantly darkened, and she said no more. So, at this time, the examiner looked at both sides as usual, then waved his hand. The 5th round of the Chunin exams begins now. Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Kyotaisha unfolded his fan, turned around and slapped an angry blow forward. Wind escape. Kamaweasel, SHHHHH as a candidate from Sunagakure village. How could Dodds not know how to deal with this move? I saw that he had already picked up the puppet the moment the strong wind took shape, and made a few rapid ups and downs to the side, to avoid the attack range of Komeitachi. Haha, incompetent and furious. With one stroke of his right hand, the bandage wrapping the puppet instantly spread out. Galila the puppet, which was obviously a humanoid, but made into 8 arms and legs, flew towards Saotisa with an uncomfortable sound. Wind escape. Wind blade. Whoosh. 2 huge wind blades crisscrossed and cut towards the puppet. However, Dodds is obviously not a weak player. Faced with this close counterattack, he could react instantly, control the puppet to turn over, and dodge in the air, and at the same time, he opened his mouth and shot a large amount of SSSSSSSSSSS at Saotisa, a fluffy needle-like hidden weapon. Because this counterattack came so suddenly, Saotisa's strength had just been exhausted, and he had no time to recharge, so he had to roll to the ground to block the fan on himself. Ding 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 ding. Fortunately, his body is not too fat, and the largest steel fan bones on both sides can be completely blocked when put together. However, while he was dodging, the puppet controlled by Dodds was not idle. As soon as the needle-like hidden weapon shot the 8 arms and legs, it suddenly grew longer, and the puppet flew towards Saotisa and tied him up at the same time. Saotisa, whose sight was blocked by the fan, just showed up and saw a big spider hugging him. In desperation, he had to give up the fan and turned back a series of times. At the same time, he shook his hands and rubbed 2 wind blades out. Blade of wind. Click. 3 of the 8 long legs that were waving flamboyantly were cut off in an instant. However, without the bonus and defense of the fan, Saotisa, who was already at a disadvantage, was soon forced into danger by the puppet's endless hidden weapons. She wanted to get close to Dozu, but couldn't do it. Dots, who was watching from a distance, could clearly see all Saotisa's intentions, and the lighter weight puppet had a speed far exceeding his. Wake up, Sota-san. After trying so hard to finally force his opponent into a corner, Dodds couldn't bear it any longer. The puppet's abdomen opened up, and in an instant countless hidden weapons rained down on Saotisa. Whoosh whoosh what? The violent screams instantly resounded throughout the entire arena, and even the spectators who were originally very excited gradually showed unbearable expressions after hearing it. Whoosh whoosh. The dense concentration of hidden weapons lasted for nearly 10 seconds before stopping. However, there was no blood on the body of Saotisa, who was the target of the attack. Ha ha. Saotisa, who was covering his head with both hands and screaming, seemed to notice something at this moment. He slowly opened his arms and looked down at the ground. Only then did he realize that all the hidden weapons that had been shot at him were gone. Edged performs. Game over. Winner. Dots. This time the examiner announced the results directly without waiting for the contestants to express their opinions. Woo woo. Good job, lad. The audience in the stands also reacted one after another at this time, and the stadium suddenly burst into violent applause like a torrent. Not only for this fierce competition, but also for Dodd's approach and personality. Wow wow wow. The fierce applause lasted until the two people left the field together, and then gradually stopped. Then many people's faces showed even more expectant looks. Because the next one is the battle between Konoha village and Tsunade village that attracts his attention. The 6th game is between Senju Mayuki from Konoha Ninja Village and Maki from Tsunade Ninja Village. Players from both sides are entering now. Crash the everyone entrance gate at the base of the wall is opened for the first time. Maki did not enter the venue in all kinds of flashy ways like the people in front of him, but chose to enter seriously step by step. After all, what she has to face next is the first bug level opponent in her life. Before starting, she must save every ounce of energy and every drop of chakra as much as possible. In the player tunnel, Quan originally wanted to say be careful, but when he thought about the gap between the two opponents, he had to hold back this reminder as soon as he started. Senju Mayuki turned back in confusion. It's nothing. He hesitated again. Although he resisted saying this in his heart, considering that the other party was a girl after all. He finally mentioned it dully. I'm a girl, so you better not go too far. Senju Mayuki glanced at her speechlessly, then turned around and stepped out. In the field, just as Maki was about to walk in front of the examiner, he suddenly saw many bright spots reflecting light in the surrounding air. The next second, I saw these bright spots gathering into a human shape in front of the examiner, as if they had met a magnet. This guy. It's so beautiful. Compared with the way he appeared, he looked like a fool when he took the exam seriously. Ooh. Seeing such a gorgeous and cool appearance, many spectators who had been waiting for a long time immediately let out excited shouts, and the atmosphere of the entire stadium instantly reached the climax of the day. Chapter 79 Because I have no choice. This candidate, are really popular. Hehe, everyone is just looking forward to this game. The Third Hokage continued to pretend to be humble. He can deeply feel and understand the envy of the 4th Kazakage. Although many people said during the promotion that they came just to watch this game, the 4th Kazakage should have been mentally prepared for it. But when I sit on the podium as a representative of a power and see so many spectators cheering crazily for the players from other villages, I will definitely feel sour in my heart. How great it would be if all the popularity and cheers were directed at the children in our village. No matter how generous you are, you will definitely not be able to help but think this way in this kind of atmosphere, because I'm really envious. However, Hokage-sama, isn't ice release always under the control of Kirigakure village? Who is your candidate? In fact, this is also a common question that many people have after seeing Senju Shinetsu's abilities. Looking at the entire ninja world, anyone who has some knowledge will definitely think of Mudun when talking about the Senju clan and the blood successor realm. What the hell is the Thousand Hands of Ice release? Could it be that someone from the Senju clan has intermarried with a clan from Hidden Kiri village? Hehe, even though Lord Kazakage is asking this, you actually already have the answer in your mind, don't you? Although Senju Mayuki is still a long way from fully growing up, however, Tsunade village has been acting quite friendly recently. Moreover, for matters like the blood inheritance limit, anyone with a little knowledge and brains can come to a conclusion with just a few guesses and verifications. It will definitely not be hidden from anyone. So there is no need for the Third Hokage to pretend to be mysterious anymore. As long as you don't admit it personally, you can do whatever you want. In the field, Senju Mayuki and Maki stood opposite each other. Listening to the louder shouts in the stands, Maki couldn't help but curled his lips. You just enter when you enter, and you actually put up such a gorgeous formation. Those who didn't know better thought you were performing on stage. She knew that her chances of winning today were probably zero. But precisely because of this kind of mental preparation, when I actually stand in front of Senju Mayuki, I'm not as nervous as before going on the field. I know I will lose, but I still don't panic. Because there is no way. Senju Mayuki didn't pay much attention to her complaints, but suddenly asked confusedly, "Are you ready?" Maki was silent for a moment. She knew that the other person was not asking about whether she was ready for the exam, but about the abilities and characteristics that he had revealed half a month ago, and whether she had prepared a way to deal with them. Probably, it just might be a bit too intense, and it might surprise you. Senju Mayuki nodded, then looked at the examiner. Let's begin. So, the examiner looked at each side as usual, and then raised his hand. The sixth round of the Chunin exams begins. Swish, step, step, step. As soon as he finished speaking, Maki immediately started running around the field with his opponent as the center like some of the previous candidates. It's not that the game scenes are the same, but as a ninja, when facing an unknown or uncertain opponent, you can only react faster when you are attacked by running quickly. Too intense. What kind of attack will it be? In fact, with Maki's speed, Senju Mayuki could defeat her instantly with ice arrows. But since he had already made the decision to increase his influence as soon as possible, he had to consider some situational things. With so many spectators, and so many famous nobles running over to watch him play with great expectations, isn't this an excellent stage to showcase himself? Before the strength reaches a certain level, the world of ninjas is not entirely decided by ninjas. So Senju Mayuki didn't take action immediately after it started. Instead, he allowed Zenshu to run around and around, while he himself stood in place, not even turning his body, but just following her with his eyes when the other party appeared in sight. The moment the real tree disappeared from the left field of vision again, a sweet shout was suddenly heard, coming. Bang whoosh whoosh. Senju Zenitsu immediately turned her head when she heard the sound, and immediately saw an open scroll in midair shooting a dense number of hidden weapons at her. I've already said it, it's just that a simple ninja tool is useless to me. He frowned subconsciously, but before he finished speaking, he saw that some of these hidden weapons were different from others. Detonating talisman? Chap. This is really intense. He wanted to get out of the way like a conditioned reflex, but as soon as the thought came up, he stopped it abruptly. Today is to show off yourself. Of course, the bigger and more gorgeous the scene, the better. Ice wall. He stretched out his left hand and pushed hard in the direction of the concealed weapon. Kakaka. In an instant, an exaggerated ice wall rose from the ground. Or to be more precise, it is said to be an ice wall, but it is actually more like a thorn monster with barbs on its surface, revealing countless spiked fangs that are shining in the direction of the real tree. Wow, is this ice escape? It's still transparent. There was a burst of discussion among the audience in the stands. Boom boom boom. The smoke generated by the explosion instantly surrounded the entire place where Senju Mayuki was, using a detonating talisman. This is definitely a foul. That's right. You still use so much. Don't you want to kill someone? The audience's discussion became more intense, and some people looked at the smoke-filled fire and expressed concern. Can the frozen defense block such a terrifying explosion? It might work. Absolutely. Otherwise, why would so many of us come here with such expectation? That is. Hope so. Boom boom. The explosion sound gradually became smaller. At this time, Maki had already quickly circled the field, changed his position, squatted down, and made a gesture of preparation. After finishing, he and the audience looked nervously at Senju Mayuki's position, who a gust of wind blew by, quickly blowing away the smoke from the explosion. Oh. The anxious audience suddenly let out waves of deafening shouts. I saw that the ground outside the spikes had been blasted with a large crater by the detonating talisman. However, the place where Senju Zenitsu was standing was not affected at all, and even the long spikes showed no signs of breaking. Seeing this scene, many knowledgeable ninjas couldn't help but gasp. You must know that in the current ninja world, the power of the detonating talisman is almost comparable to the special skills of many veteran ninjas. What's more, so many detonating symbols exploded together. The burst of banging and banging just now must have been 40 or 50 at least, right? Good guy, it's just a Chunin exam, and you're so treacherous the moment you take action. Suna Ninja Village keeps saying it's short of money recently, so it's really just crying for poverty. The fourth Kazakage, dark-faced and unwilling to speak. Although he was also shocked by the defensive power of the ice wall, what he wanted to say at this moment was, salary deduction. Wages must be deducted. How could a genin afford such a huge expense? These detonating charms were definitely sponsored by her teacher Yikang. My dear old man spends all day squatting in the desert like a bastard, fishing for placer of gold to pay off his debts. But you guys spend a lot of money to show your prestige. Salary deduction. Wages must be deducted. It will take at least 10 months. Chapter 80. They have never seen it before. Wow, the power of dozens of explosive talismans is really incredible. Turning around to face Maki, who was holding the seal with both hands, Senju Mayuki's face turned slightly pale. How could it be possible that nothing happened after enduring so many explosions? The reason why the ice wall remains the same is only because he has been continuously injecting spiritual power into it. But fortunately, the whiteness is not very obvious. If you don't look closely, you can't really see it. Looking at the reaction of the audience on the stage, especially when I noticed that the famous names and nobles were talking excitedly about something, I suddenly felt that the price of bearing this wave was not a loss. Although thinking this way is a bit embarrassing, given the current structure of the ninja world, the influence of daimyo and nobles does account for a large proportion, and there is no way around it. Sure enough, if it's just some detonating charms, it won't pose any threat to you at all. Having said that, there was no look of disappointment on Zenshu's face, which made him guess what more intense moves the opponent would have next. Isn't it to get more detonating symbols? If that were the case, it would be a bit much. But you are already in my trap. You must take it seriously this time, otherwise. Drink. Bang 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 bang. 4 streaks of light smoke exploded in 4 directions at the same time. Sure. 4 black shadows opened their arms and rushed towards Senju Mayuki at the same time. Net bag? Exclamation mark. He quickly glanced around and confirmed that the 4 directions were just ordinary rope nets, but they appeared too suddenly, and the angles of the 4 net pockets were set very well. If it were an ordinary person, he would definitely be entangled in these net ropes. Ice armor. Although he could fly out, Senju Mayuki still chose to carry it. After all, we have to consider the scene effect. Only head-on confrontation will bring more things to watch, right? The 4 nets accurately wrapped Senju Zenyu into rice dumplings. The next second, Zenshu took out 4 scrolls from his arms again and threw them over with his hand raised. At the same time, he reminded loudly again, you must take it seriously, this move is no joke. When the scroll flew over Senju Zenyu, open. Bang 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 bang. 4 more streaks of white smoke flashed by. However, what appeared this time was no longer a hidden weapon, nor a net bag, but 4 orange-red fireballs the size of volleyballs. The temperature is so high that even the light in the air is significantly distorted. This is burning escape. Many ninjas who had seen it at the scene couldn't help but exclaimed. Especially the spies from Iowa Ninja Village who were hiding in the crowd were so jealous that they were so angry that they almost chewed their teeth after seeing these fireballs. Since that woman appeared on the battlefield, countless outstanding ninjas in Iowa Ninja Village has been roasted into mummies by this move. Hey, that woman is playing tricks. How could Senju Mayuki not recognize Yakura's signature ninjutsu that he had always cherished? No wonder I keep reminding me to be careful. It turns out that Zuo-yun is sealed into the scroll. Only the student Maki is treated like this. So, what is so big and can block this backstab from an elite jonin? He thrust his hands diagonally upwards to both sides. Ice Dragon. Raw. X4. It's like 4 invisible portals suddenly appeared in the sky. East, south, west, north. 4 directions. Almost at the feet of the audience. 4 mighty, domineering and majestic dragons just emerged from scratch. It has a slender body that is more than 10 meters long, a ferocious dragon head like a crocodile, thick limbs, claws as sharp as an eagle, antlers, fish scales, and whiskers at the corners of its mouth. Except for those ninjas who knew the goods, almost everyone in the audience was shocked. The huge competition ground even fell into an eerie silence for a moment. In the competition field, fortunately, Maki is just a user and cannot control the speed of the scorching fireball. Therefore, after the ice dragon appeared, it even had time to roar around the field in front of the audience and then swoop down quickly. In the shocked eyes of Zenshu and the examiner, they each picked up a fireball and then waved again. The tail soared straight into the sky, straight into the air. Wow. Wow. Until this moment, the audience who had been holding their breath began to applaud violently, as if they were waking up from a dream. Even if their hands hurt from clapping and their throats became hoarse from shouting, they did not stop. The atmosphere was even more exciting than when Senju Mayuki came on stage just now. Ha, you've never seen a dragon playing with a pearl, you're a bunch of old haters. Although his face is turning pale at a speed visible to the naked eye, but after seeing the reactions of the people around him, especially the daimyo who covered their mouths with fans in shock, Senju Mayuki couldn't help but feel irritated in his heart. But it only lasted for a moment, and then I couldn't think about all these things anymore. After all the focus of these 4 ice dragons is on their shape, and their actual hardness is about the same as that of the ice wall just now. Although the 4 fireballs did not have the support of subsequent chakra, the initial heat alone was enough to burn through them. The reason why the ice dragon can fly into the sky with his mouth is of course because he is constantly injecting spiritual power. Roar. The 4 giant dragons kept chasing each other, flipping and jumping in the midair just a line higher than the stands. The fireballs in their mouths glowed orange and looked like real dragon balls. From time to time, a super low altitude flight would come over the heads of the audience, causing waves of exclamations, and at the same time, they were deeply impressed by the impression that the Senju Mayuki of Konoha village is really very powerful, entered the mind. And the bursts of heat evaporated from the fireball made the ice dragon seem to be really shuttled through the clouds. That's what. Even outside the competition venue, the villagers who had never paid attention to the Chunin exams saw this spectacular scene. Hehe. This brat really loves to play this with the 3rd Hokage who didn't know how many times he had laughed from ear to ear. The 4th Kazakage didn't want to speak, but it would be rude to ignore it completely, so he reluctantly curled his lips as a response. This hateful brat is using the candidates from our village as a tool to amuse fools, right? With their strength at their level, how could they not see the intrigue between these ice dragons and the scorching fireball? What's the use of just seeing it? Most of the audience at the scene were muggles. They knew the principles of ninjutsu. They only knew that these ice dragons were very big and very cool. Roar. The ice dragon was still rolling and flying in midair. It wasn't until the steam stopped coming out of the dragon's mouth and Senju Zinzuki was sure that his mental power was no longer being rapidly consumed that he controlled the ice dragon to swoop down again, circling around the arena without getting angry or intimidating. He stared at the 2 outsiders in the field. The examiner, who was shocked for a long time before coming back to his senses, took the initiative to cough for the first time before the candidates expressed their opinions, and then glanced at Zenshu, who was still kneeling on the ground. Okay, even this strongest move can't defeat you, so I can only admit defeat. Of course Maki understood what he meant, and raised his right hand directly. If you lose, just lose. Anyway, it's already been decided. Not being beaten black and blue is already a way for the opponent to save face. The reason why I persisted for a while was simply because I listened to the teacher's advice. Now it seems that not only myself as a student, but also the teacher is not working, so the 6th round of the Chunin exams is over. The winner is Senju Mayuki. Roar. X4 The 4 ice dragons swung their tails and quickly rushed into the air, then looked down at the audience in the stands, and circled the field, before turning into countless ice crystals, and dispersing in the air with a click. Whoa. True moon. True moon. True moon. At this moment, the atmosphere at the Chunin examination reached its highest peak ever. Chapter 81 Chunin Position Arrangement. The much anticipated Chunin exams have finally come to an end, but for the entire village of Konoha, the real carnival has just begun. After all, we finally took this opportunity to attract such a large flow of people. If we don't take the opportunity to convert these tourists into consumption power, it would be a huge loss. As for the people who were promoted in this Chunin exam, the daimyo and the leader of the first village were all present. For example, Konoha and Tsunade were determined on the same day. The final result was 4 people from Konoha village and 2 people from Tsunade village. In fact, in addition to the 2 winners, the 4th Kazakage originally wanted to promote Maki to Chunin. After all, he was heartbroken, and Yikang's face still had to be given. However, this opinion was rejected by Yikang as soon as it was raised. What she means is that if you lose, you lose, which means that Zenshu has not practiced well enough. And this time it was true that the opponent was a little panicked and even changed Maki's original fighting method and style. This was her dereliction of duty as a teacher. She just needs to keep working hard in the future, and she shouldn't do such a thing that affects the image of the village. As for the other small villages, you can go home and play with them as you like. No one will care anyway. Just send it here. At the main entrance of Konoha village, Yi Kang motioned to the other teachers to take the candidates away first, while she stayed where she was to say her final goodbyes to Senju Mayuki, who came to see her off. After all, carnival is only for ordinary people. How can ninjas like them be so idle? So they said goodbye to Konoha the day after the exam. You boy. After the candidates had walked further away, Yi Kang looked at Senju Mayuki and said with emotion, "This time I really put a lot of effort into showing your face, but you didn't see how dark our Kazakage-sama's face was at that time. What I did yesterday was indeed not very good. I apologize to you here." Senju Mayuki pondered for a moment, "But you already know about me, right? I just want to improve myself as soon as possible to protect those who need protection. If I do it again, I will still make the same choice." Yi Kang was speechless for a moment. Of course she had already figured out some basic information about Senju Mayuki. In addition, he did not deliberately hide it when they occasionally came into contact, so he has a relatively good understanding of the relationship between Senju Mayuki and Nonao. In Yi Kang's opinion, as a man, no matter his age, as long as he is willing to do whatever it takes to protect the people close to him, he is really cool. And didn't she herself fall in love with this little guy more and more because of understanding this? Otherwise, how could she, an adult woman of the new era and the majestic hero of Sand Hidden Village, have the leisure to play with a 7 or 8-year-old kid? Let me tell you a secret before I say goodbye. Seeing that the team in front had already gone a long way, Yi Kang no longer stopped and said with a smile what he had been holding back for more than half a month. "Although you look like a child, after this period of contact, whether it is your views on certain things or the angle of thinking about problems, I often treat you as a peer without even realizing it." After saying this, before Senju Mayuki could react, "Okay, I've given it away. Your teammates should be anxious as well." He glanced at Kwan, who had been staring here not far away, with a smile, then waved and turned around to leave. "I hope you have grown into a real man when we meet next time. Then let me see which one is more powerful, your hypothermia or my scorching escape." It's agreed. Before the words could be heard, the person had become smaller and smaller and then disappeared from sight. "Are you still looking? There are no people left. Why are you here too?" Senju Mayuki turned around and walked towards the village. "Whoever picks up this topic is stupid." Although she is young, girls are generally more precocious. Of course, Kwan can hear that this guy is changing the subject. But fortunately, she is not an unreasonable girl, not to mention that she doesn't have a position now, so she can only snort dissatisfied, and then said expressionlessly, "Shikaku-sensei informed us to gather at the Hokage's office. It seems that he is preparing to announce the arrangements for our promotion to Chunin." Speaking of this, a trace of worry flashed across Kwan's eyes. "I wonder if, after becoming a Chunin, I can go on missions together as a team like before." And just about half an hour ago, when Senju Mayuki was walking out with a team from Tsunade village, the Hokage was in the office. "Although it's only been a few short months, it's been really hard and wronged for you." Speaking of the theme of today's meeting, the third Hokage couldn't help but show some apology on his face. He is clearly the number one brain in Konoha village, but he has to pretend to not understand anything in front of a few children. Everything is focused on cultivating the genin's independent thinking and teamwork abilities. It's really torture for the Nara clan. As for the three of them, it's okay. Narashikaku's face didn't show any displeasure, but instead seemed to be a little unfinished. After all, it is really a pleasure to watch the future of Konoha village under your own cultivation. Moreover, the three of them are very smart and can quickly think of countermeasures and plans for whatever happens. To be honest, I have become a bit lazy in the past few months. Here he thrive. After a brief chat, the third Hokage brought up today's topic. "So, as the person who knows them best, what position do you think would be better for them?" This is also the tradition of Konoha village. After all, Chunin is already considered a leader, and subsequent promotions can only rely on hard power and contribution to the village. Therefore, the opinions of leading Jounin when assigning duties are very important, and it is not too much to say that it will directly affect the students' lives. Administrative department, education department, medical class, barrier class, interrogation department, police department. Standing in front of the table, Naruto touched his chin with one hand and held the form handed over by the third Hokage in the other hand and thought carefully. In fact, when it comes to accumulating merit, going to the battlefield to kill enemies and make meritorious deeds is the best solution. But this item wasn't written on the form, so he certainly wouldn't be stupid enough to ask. In fact, it's not just the battlefield. Let's not talk about it at all. Even the Anbu directly under the Hokage is not an option. How can he still not understand what the third Hokage means? Hokage-sama? After thinking for a while, Naruto carefully expressed his opinion. My subordinates think that the growth of the three of them so far has been a little too smooth. What they need most now is to settle down for some time. With their current age and strength, it is not necessarily a good thing to rise to the top too early. After listening to this, the third Hokage picked up his pipe and took a few more puffs. Behind the lingering smoke, his eyes flickered in thought for a long time. You are right, I think so too. Anyway, he is definitely not willing to let Senju Mayuki go to the battlefield or anything like that now, and with his current physical condition, if nothing unexpected happens, he can still hold on for at least 10 more years. There is really no need to rush to give that little one anymore. This guy laid too much groundwork. After all, what he needs is a qualified successor to Hokage. If he interferes too much during the growth stage, he is also worried that it will have some bad effects on Senju Mayuki's character. So among these departments, where do you think he should go? My subordinates think. If you're having trouble deciding, I have a recommended place. The office door was suddenly pushed open from the outside, and then a dashing figure was seen striding in. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82. I'm done. At Tsunade, after seeing the person coming, the third Hokage's face was a little surprised, but mostly happy. No matter what the reason is, it is always a good thing that students are willing to come to you. Hehe, I didn't confused. Expect you to come here just for this matter. He waved to the guard with an expression at the door to let him out. After the office door was closed, he looked at Tsunade with interest. As a fellow member of the same race, your opinions do have certain reference value. Let's talk about it. It wouldn't matter if they were just of the same race, but Tsunade is the granddaughter of the first Hokage and her influence as a medical ninja is extraordinary. It would be fine if she didn't express her opinion. Once she did speak, who in Konoha village would dare to ignore her opinion now? Here, Tsunade didn't have a nagging temper and directly put a list in her hand on the desk. Patient information sheet, medical records. The third Hokage looked up at her in confusion, while Naruto quickly read down, then touched his chin and asked thoughtfully, does Tsunade-sama want him to go to Konoha prison to gain seniority? Prison? The third Hokage's brows immediately wrinkled. The full name of Konoha prison is also called the criminal prison for serious ninjas. That place is dark and humid, with no sunlight all year round. Moreover, none of the good people were imprisoned inside, either murderers or ninjas who leaked information. This environment was really far from the image he expected of the heir to the Hokage under the sun. What he looked forward to most was a sunshine boy like Minato. I said, old man, as if she had read through his thoughts. Tsunade showed a mocking smile. Since Senju Mayuki graduated, who doesn't know about your thoughts? But I would like to advise you, are you a little too persistent? Don't you think that, if you just blindly pile up positive images on him, it will take a long time? Will it harm him if he doesn't? Naruto, who cleans this house? Why is there not even an ant? The third Hokage had no expression on his face and didn't speak. In fact, with his experience, how could he not have thought of what Tsunade said? It's just easy to say, when I think of such a good seedling, I always feel like, if I don't do something for him, it feels like a cat scratching my paws. I can't help it. Forget it. I'll tell you my considerations. It's up to you to make the final decision. As soon as she saw him like this, Tsunade knew that the old man was thinking about it again, so she continued impatiently. First of all, it is certain that Senju Mayuki will not be promoted in a short period of time. This will not do him any good. If it is not handled well, it may even lead to bad things. The second thing is that, although there are all bad guys in the prison, not many dare to cause trouble under the supervision of the guard force. The most is the prisoners fighting each other, just like these guys, Tsunade said, clicking on the medical records on the table. This happened to her when she was relaxing in the hospital. It was only after seeing the patient that she came up with this idea. Furthermore, Senju Mayuki is a bit younger, but you have all seen that his strength is no worse than the average Chunin, and even surpasses many people, so there is no need to worry about safety issues. Lastly, didn't you also say that what he needs now is precipitation and qualifications? There are fewer things in prison, which means he can have more free time to devote to cultivation. Prisoners often fight. Firstly, his ice escape is very suitable for controlling the situation. Secondly, if someone is injured, it will give him more opportunities to practice medical ninjutsu. By the way, it can also reduce the number of prisoners entering and leaving the hospital, thereby ordinary villagers. Opportunities mean you can achieve multiple goals with one stone, right? After finishing speaking, Tsunade stared at Naruto and Tsunade domineeringly for a while, and finally said threatening, "I finished my words, you can think about it yourself." Then she left vigorously again without waiting for the two to answer. Boom. The office door closed again. In the room, the third Hokage and Naruto looked at each other, and then showed helpless smiles almost at the same time. This kid, even though he's grown up, is still so arrogant that the third Hokage could say this, but Naruto didn't dare to answer it. He just chose his words more carefully. I think what Tsunade-sama said makes sense. The environment of Konoha prison is not good, and it sounds a bit unacceptable to ordinary villagers. In other respects, it is really as Tsunade-sama said, and it is indeed more suitable for Little May situation. Well, the third Hokage put away his smile, touched the pipe again and started smoking, and this time it lasted longer. First of all, the administrative department only sounds nice, but in fact it handles some trivial matters in the village, or prints and distributes documents, conducts publicity, etc. People will be useless if they stay there for a long time, so he proposed this just as a face-saving job, and it has no meaning at all. I considered letting Senju Mayuki go. The same goes for the Ministry of Education. No, the education department is more boring and less considerate. As for the medical class, Tsunade, the boss of the medical department, didn't even say that she was allowed to go, so she stopped talking. It is not easy to get results in the boundary class, and there is almost no personal time, so it is not considered. The interrogation department sounds better than prison, but that's just what it sounds like. In fact, if you stay there for a long time, you can easily become a psychopath, let alone go there. As for the security force, if Tsunade did not come this time, with the agreement between him and Uchiha Fugaku, he could give it a try. Fine. Thinking of this, the third Hokage finally made up his mind and said, then let him serve in the specialized criminal prison for serious ninjas. Yes, Hokage-sama. Naruto nodded, then Koizumi, Takuma and the others. Of course we went together in the same class. The third Hokage immediately looked at him with an expression of what are you thinking about? Joke. It took a lot of effort for me to cultivate the two little guys into such an inseparable state. Anyone who dares to cause trouble with me at this time will be slapped to death. As for Hyuga Takuma, there are 3 people in a class, and 2 of them have left. It's not good to leave one behind, and since the Hyuga clan expressed their stance like that, they still have to consider their feelings. Dang Hokage-sama, the 3 new Chunin from team have arrived. Come in. The third Hokage's face instantly became filled with wrinkles as soon as he heard this. No way. Now when I think about these little guys, I can't help but feel happy. Can't help it. I really can't help it. Hokage-sama. Shikaku-sensei. X3HMMHMM. The third Hokage smiled and raised his hand casually, then signaled Narashikaku to chat with the students, while he took out a blank document from the drawer and started writing. Your new position has been determined. It is. Narashikaku recounted as much as he could about what he had just said to the third Hokage and Tsunade, and finally asked a procedural question. Do you have any different opinions on this arrangement? The third Hokage. I do not have. Senju Mayuki was the first to express his opinion, because he really had no interest in the other 6 options. Compared with Konoha Prison, which has less things to do, and more free space, it is indeed a good choice. And just when his voice had barely finished, Izumi immediately bent his eyes and said, me neither. Although her mother hopes that she can join the security force. Sorry mom, my daughter will let you down this time. In fact, my daughter doesn't want to either, but there's nothing she can do about it. After all, this is Hokage-sama's arrangement. I have no opinion either. Hyuga Takuma finally expressed his position. He thought simply, at his current age, no matter which department he went to, he would not be well received. He might as well choose to stay with his teammates in the same class. It is good. It happened that the third Hokage had finished writing at this time. After hearing the 3 people's statements, he immediately laughed and picked up the Hokage's seal and stamped it with a bang. I'll give you 3 days to prepare. In 3 days, you will arrive at Konoha Village's specialized ninja prison for serious crimes on time. Chapter 83 takes the appointment as warden. Wearing a ninja vest. I'm tying my forehead protector on. Cleaning the ninja. Checking dress code. I'm leaving. Okay, there was some worry in Nonoyo's voice, but more of it was happiness and encouragement. When you get to your new position, remember to learn more from your seniors. Understood. Bang outside the door. Senju Mayuki stood on the stairs, facing the rising sun, closed her eyes, and took a long deep breath. Then she jumped down and took a less crowded road to the west of the village. Rintu, Konoha Prison is located in a valley in the northwest of the village. Among the 3 of them, only Kwan lives closest, so they made an appointment to meet at the gate of the Uchiha clan today. As for why you don't just run straight across the roof, like in the anime. Unless there is a special mission, ninjas generally would not choose to pass by other people's houses, let alone this early in the morning. Residents also have tempers. Too many complaints are a problem. At the very least, a visit to apologize is indispensable. Yo brothers NIU. Suddenly a passionate voice came from behind, and the next second I saw a green figure following quickly. Morning, K. Hahaha, brothers NIU is really energetic. After putting on the new uniform, Senju Mayuki lowered his head slightly and glanced at himself, and for a moment he didn't know how to answer the question. In the 3 days reserved by the third Hokage for them, in addition to rest, the most important thing was to customize work clothes for them. The green vest issued after being promoted to Chunin is only standard equipment. For those with a formal occupation like him, they still have to wear Konoha prison work clothes when working, a more regular and formal full body uniform. If that's all, forget it. The most important thing is that the color of this work clothes is too fashionable. Senju Mayuki feels that a small body really can't hold it. High-end atmospheric cement gray. It really fits the atmosphere of prison labor camp. But, his uncle and great-grandfathers. I'm only 8 years old. Matsuki, K-senpai. Fortunately, I happened to meet Hyuga Takuma at this time. Senju Mayuki immediately took the opportunity to say goodbye to K, and then hurriedly left without waiting for his reaction. Brothers NIU, what's going on? Maybe you feel shy after hearing my compliment. This new uniform is really cool. After meeting Izumi, the 3 of them headed northwest again, and finally arrived at their destination before 8 o'clock. A valley in the northwest corner of Konoha Village, with a huge lake in the middle. Is this where Konoha Village holds serious criminals? The first thing the 3 of them noticed after arriving was the water in the lake. For some reason, it turned out to be blood red. The prison is located in the middle of the lake. The overall shape looks like a triangle, and it is connected to the outside world only by a suspension bridge that can be pulled up at both ends. Oh, the new guy is finally here. On the outer edge of the lake is a watchtower more than 10 meters high. Just as the 3 of them stood still, they heard a joking voice coming from above, and then they saw the huge suspension bridge begin to creep downwards. Welcome, newcomers. Hello senior. Hey, what's your name, senior? I'm Iwana from the third team. You can just call me by my name. The voice above suddenly became more enthusiastic. Looking at the look of joy on his face, I felt that, if it weren't for his job responsibilities, he might have stopped when he saw them. Creak, squeak, boom. Fortunately, the suspension bridge was lowered very quickly, and the three people's embarrassment did not last long, and they ran towards the island amidst Iwana's blessings. Welcome, newcomers. There was also a ninja waiting at the other end of the suspension bridge. He was wearing the same uniform as Senju Mayuki and the other three, but he was not as enthusiastic as Iwana. But it's not that bad. Hello senior, we are Senju Mayuki, the new recruit today, Uchiha Spring. Hi Hugatakuma. Ah. The ninja watched the three of them introduce themselves in turn, then slightly and replied, I'm Akito from team, you can just call me Akato. Come with me, I will first introduce you to the general situation here. Yes, Akato senpai. We have a total of 5 groups under standing conditions here. Each group has 3 people, 2 inside and 1 in the watchtower. A shift system is implemented, and each group will have a 12-hour rest period after working 48 hours. We Chunin don't have much work. We mainly patrol and maintain order to prevent prisoners from riots and large-scale fights. As for chores, like cleaning up and preparing meals, we don't have to worry about it. There will be a dedicated genin team to do it. Along the way, Chairman Ziming's voice and expression were very calm. I don't know if he was unhappy or if he was born like this. However, Senju Mayuki and the others feel more comfortable in contact with him. The group of people walked straight through the dark and cold main building to the back door. When they came out, they saw a large area. At this time, a large group of prisoners who didn't know how many were chopping mountains, cutting rocks, or digging. Physical labor. After seeing their figures, a ninja who was patrolling immediately nodded to Akito and then blew the whistle in his hand. Everyone immediately put down their work and lined up in the playground. All the prisoners immediately turned their heads and looked over in confusion. What the hell are these guys doing? Whatever, it's good to be able to stop working anyway, even if it's just a few points. That's Sidwodang bang shovel, hammer, cart. For a time, the entire labor field was filled with the sound of various tools being thrown to the ground. Although they don't understand what happened, it is a good thing not to work, and of course they will not refuse. Hurry up. Seeing their bustling appearance, the ninja who blew the whistle couldn't help but shouted angrily, if you can't stand up within 1 minute, everyone in the team will have no food for lunch. What? These hateful guys only know how to threaten us with food. Immediately there was a buzz of dissatisfaction among the crowd, but the speed of the queue was indeed much faster. I'm not afraid of being hungry, but the main thing is that I'm afraid of those 2 fat guys who are not very smart. If they knew that they could not eat because of their non-cooperation, they would probably have dozens of bones broken, even if they were not beaten to death. Damn it. Obviously they are so strong, not to mention a few Chunin. Even ordinary Jounin may not be able to beat them, but the 2 fools just stay in the prison, acting stupidly all day long. As long as they are given food, it's so fun to eat. Waste. It's just a waste of such a good talent. Quiet. After the team was lined up, Heiei Michitsuru, the ninja who blew the whistle just now, immediately said, I've only brought you together for one thing. As he spoke, he motioned to the 3 Senju Mayuki who were standing next to him with one hand. From today on, the 3 of them will take over the position of the 5th group of custody officers. You all should take note of it and remember it. You are not allowed to show any disrespect to them because of their age. Do you understand? All were silent. Standing on the high platform, Senju Mayuki could clearly see the various looks and expressions on the faces of the prisoners after hearing these words. Surprise, disbelief, ridicule, contempt. Some people even couldn't help but laugh out loud. They actually sent a few children here to serve as guards. Does Konoha treat this place as a kindergarten and treat us guys as affectionate and warm dads? Ha ha ha. That's right. We still have endless work to do every day, but we don't have time to take care of your children. Children, just go home and drink milk. There are fierce murderers here. Aren't you afraid of scaring them to tears? Ha ha ha. Chapter 84. New official takes office. 1 Throwing water. At first, only a few bolder prisoners were laughing. However, seeing that Officer Hayes, who was presiding over the scene, did not have any intention of getting angry, the other prisoners suddenly became excited. I was wondering if there was something dirty between these guards. So, does Inspector Hayes want to use these difficult prisoners as a deterrent to these little kids? Few of the prisoners who can get in here are truly good and stupid. And as more and more people thought this way, the laughter gradually became louder and more unscrupulous. Looking at Officer Hayes, he still looked like he was not making any movement, so more prisoners understood and joined in the booing! These nasty bastards. Being ridiculed like this, Izumi couldn't hold it back for a long time, and even Hinata Takuma, who had always been well-mannered, began to frown slightly. After all, it is my first job, so I was quite looking forward to it at first. On the other hand, Senju Mayuki's expression has always been normal, or in other words, he is recalling the advice Akato Akira just gave in his mind. Prisoners are a special group. They will not treat you specially because of your outstanding achievements outside. They only believe in one thing here, strength. As long as you are strong enough, they will all be obedient little mice. But if you show weakness and are easy to bully, then they will be the most ferocious ghosts and will eat you up until you are nothing. I don't know why the higher-ups let you come here to work at your age, but I believe the higher-ups must have considered your strength. As for whether you can take office smoothly, let's start with whether you can handle the following meeting well. Bull meeting. To put it nicely, I'm supporting you guys. It's not nice to say it, but it's just a warning from old employees to new employees. Zio I can't bear it anymore. Me. Unable to bear it any longer, Quan gritted his teeth and wanted to open his Sharingan. He couldn't kill criminals for no reason. It would be okay to punish them with Jinjutsu, right? Do not. However, Senju Mayuki suddenly reached out to stop her and then looked at Hayase Mitachi, who had not spoken since saying those words. When Hayase Mitachi saw his gaze, he shrugged his shoulders indifferently and then spread his hands in the direction of the prisoner. The meaning is obvious. As long as no one dies, please have fun, it is good. Senju Mayuki nodded. As long as you have this attitude. Among the prisoners below, there must be some smart guys who saw their body language and the meaning of their expressions. Some people immediately stopped laughing and became worried, but most of them became more and more unscrupulous. Since it's an open and covered fight among the guards, then it's okay for me to go too far. Even if it means receiving some punishment afterwards, I'm willing to do so. After all, the opportunity to embarrass the detention officer in such an upright manner does not come every day. Hey, kid, looking at your height, how old are you this year? Have you been weaned? Ha ha ha. And that little girl, look at how angry she is. She must be so scared that she wants to cry and go home to find her mother. Ha ha ha. Why bother? Life is short, yet we are so eager to find shortcuts. To be honest, Senju Mayuki didn't have any prejudice against these complete strangers at first. All he wanted in his mind was to get off work normally and spend this settling time quietly. But now, there is. And it's deep. Take a deep breath silently and then raise your hands to the lake on both sides. Boom. Boom. Two blood-red water columns several meters thick suddenly rose into the sky. After reaching an altitude of more than 10 meters, they suddenly turned and gathered towards the playground in the middle. Hey, are you kidding? With just this move, more than half of the prisoners were stunned and panicked. Warden, stop him quickly. That water pouring down is no joke. The location of this prison is a bit special. There is a special mineral in the lake. When the human body comes into contact with it, it will cause a burning and unbearable pain. Once it is touched, it can only be relieved through medical ninjutsu, or gritting one's teeth to get through it. However, Hayase Mitachi still acted as if the matter had nothing to do with him, and even looked at Senju Mayuki in surprise because of the movement of this hand. Anyway, he had received the information in advance and knew that this boy had good fighting ability, and the Fengshen and Thor, the most difficult ones in the prison, would not be released to work, so he was not worried about any unmanageable consequences. Or maybe he just wanted to learn about the strength of his new colleagues through this fast damn. Those guys are all the same. No one cares about our life or death. Upon seeing this, Some prisoners with ruthless personalities immediately looked at each other viciously and then suddenly rushed towards the high platform at the same time. Anyway, both sides are being punished, so why not give it a try? It's better than enduring the pain of being poured by lake water. Swoosh. Seeing this, Izumi immediately took out Shuonjetsu and stood in front of Senju Mayuki. Hinata Takuma also opened his Byakugan and made a soft fist stance. Clang 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 clang. A series of blood red ice spikes suddenly fell from the sky, forcing the prisoners who had just rushed out a few steps back into the crowd. Clang 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 clang. Not only the front, but all the prisoners who wanted to escape were forced back to where they were. Almost in the blink of an eye, hundreds of prisoners were surrounded by a circle of thorn-like red ice spikes. Even the top is blocked by interlaced icicles. It's over. When all the prisoners saw this scene, their hearts suddenly trembled. This is a death row. Roar. A huge stream of water, as big as the roar of a giant dragon, crashed down on the ground, immediately dousing the prisoners in the ice spike cage until they fell on their backs and howled in pain. What? Pain? It's so hot. Stop it now. Let me out. Let me out quickly. The burning pain caused by the blood red lake water pouring on their bodies, the abnormal cold that made their hands and feet increasingly numb, and the ice spikes on the inner wall of the cage that made their scalps numb the most. Fortunately, I just grabbed the gap in the ground tightly, otherwise if I really hit it, my whole body would be pierced. No, I was wrong. Stop pouring it. They are the ones who are mocking you. Just punish them. We are all innocent. Stop it. Warden. However, their cries for mercy were doomed to be in vain. Now that he has taken action, Senju Mayuki does not intend to end things in an anticlimactic manner. This time he will directly convince and defeat their fears, so that future work will be more smooth. Seeing such a scene, Akito and Heiau Riki were also a little stunned, and their expressions were constantly changing. Perhaps they were thinking in their hearts, with the fighting power displayed by this new colleague, what would be their winning rate in the event of a conflict. Bang bang bang. Some prisoners who refused to accept their fate began to try to smash the ice spikes, or kept jumping up to try to break the upper cage. What a pity they are destined to be disappointed. If it is just formed, there is still a slight possibility of breakage. Now as the lake water falls, every drop of lake water falling on it will only make the cage stronger and harder. Whoa, the red lake water is still splashing in. Although it is not as intense as at the beginning, it can ensure that everyone in the cage can enjoy this baptism evenly. In 3 minutes, everyone who tried to break the ice cage gave up. After 5 minutes, the screams and pleas for mercy began to gradually subside. For 10 minutes, the entire prison was enveloped in a thin layer of cold air. The prisoners were lying on the floor in a mess, and their begging for mercy and screams were almost inaudible. Coupled with the blood red color everywhere on the ground, this playground seems to have turned into a human purgatory that has just been slaughtered. Chapter 85. Where there is a workplace, there is society. The effect of this meet and greet on the first day of taking office was quite impressive. Not only did the prisoners suffer a lot, if such a big thing happened, of course the Jounin in charge of the prison would have to report it. But when he truthfully reported the news he heard in the Hokage's office, but only heard the third Hokage say I know with a smile and let him go back, the Jounin immediately understood in his heart the 3 what level of existence is the little ghost. Especially when he heard his subordinates running over to report that Hokage-sama had sent a team to deal with funeral arrangements and clean up the scene before he could return to his post after coming out. He felt even more surprised. What is the Chosen One? What the hell is called the Chosen One? He created such a big situation on his first day on the job. He didn't have to bear any responsibility. The top leader even personally took care of his business. If that's not enough, what kind of person is the real Chosen One? Damn it. After thinking about this, the Jounin immediately asked his subordinates to notify all the Chunin cadres in the prison. In the evening, we open a small stove in the cafeteria to welcome new colleagues. Everyone must be present. If anyone dares not to come, don't blame me, the warden, for not saving face for you in the future. It was this notification that instantly woke up the other groups of detention officers who had various thoughts. This new guy is a real big daddy. I, the king of hell, can't he afford to offend you? You little brats can handle it on your own. Come. Let's drink another drink to our new colleagues. Come on, come on. XN do it. XN at around 8 o'clock in the evening, all 16 cadres from the entire prison, including Senju Mayuki and the 3 of them, plus the jounin in charge, were present. For the quality of the food, the jounin even found a top-level chef through connections. Friends come to cook in person, whether it's fish, shrimp, sea abalone, or any other delicacies, as long as you can get it, feel free to buy it. In short, today's request is just one. Tasty, tasty, kids love it. Anyway, it's the prison's public accounts, and he, the warden, doesn't have to pay personally, and with the attitude shown by the Third Hokage today, even if he was stabbed for eating and drinking with public funds this time, nothing would happen. Various steaming and delicious meals were served in turn, and the clever guy even made everyone laugh with a series of non-repetitive blowjobs. Those who don't speak much can just eat, drink and have fun together, or occasionally join in with colleagues and praise their new colleagues. In short, the atmosphere at the table is fun and the laughter never stops from the beginning. Of course, although they kept saying they were done, there was actually not a bottle of wine on the table, and everyone drank only juice. After all, the 3 new colleagues are still fully minors. They don't dare to get into the trouble of instigating underage drinking, just for such a little talko, you don't know. As soon as I saw the 3 of them today, a word came to my mind, young hero. Heir of the 3rd team is the guy who was on duty at the watchtower outside during the day. At that time, Senju Mayuki felt that this person was quite familiar to him, but she still underestimated him. When he sat at the dinner table, he kept talking non-stop. Logically speaking, based on the temperament of the 3 of them, especially Hyuga Takuma, who has a cold nature, they should be more resistant to communicating with this kind of person, but I can't help but this person really knows how to talk. It means that you clearly know that he is praising you, but the words and sentences he says are not the kind of outright praise, but always covertly praise him in some casual topic, making you reject him repeatedly. I can't even find the reason. I feel that the intensity is just right. If it is more, it will be harder. If it is less, it will be itchy. Listening to his self-introduction, it was clear that he was a middle-aged man in his 30s, but when he was holding and licking 3 children, he didn't feel any estrangement or embarrassment at all. And this guy not only talks with his mouth, but also keeps his eyes moving around the 3 of them. When they see one of them look slightly unhappy after hearing something said by a colleague, they can immediately and calmly change the topic to another direction without any hesitation. It feels abrupt. If you see someone looking at a certain dish twice, you can immediately put the dish in front of him. In short, the oral skills and eyesight of this middle-aged man, Heir, accounted for at least half of the credit for the team-building dinner being so lively tonight. Talent, but it's a pity that I was born in the wrong place. If it were in his previous life, at least at this level, he would have become a billionaire. My lords, the food is ready. You can eat first. If there is anything else you want, just ask and I will cook it for you. Hey, old man Guji, you've been busy for a few hours. Why don't you sit down and have something to eat? The old man Kosuke is a jounin who specially invited his cooking friend today, a little old man who is not very tall and always squints his eyes. No, no, no. Hearing the jounin's invitation, old man Kosuke smiled and waved his hands. This is a dinner party for adults and colleagues. It's not appropriate for an old man like me to join in. After saying that, he hurriedly turned around and left. His steps were vigorous and his figure was steady. No matter how he looked, he didn't look like an ordinary chef. Guji. Guji. Looking at the old man's back thoughtfully, Senju Mayuki always felt as if he had seen him before somewhere. Oh, old man Kosuke, I heard he is a veteran genin. Heir immediately noticed his gaze, although everyone here knew the details of this old man. Because he was invited by his superiors, he couldn't overdo it at this time, so he took the opportunity to bring the topic to the jounin. The captain seems to be quite familiar with him. You'd better listen to the captain and tell you, while maintaining relationships with colleagues, don't forget to create some opportunities for superiors to show off. Only in this way can you be a good subordinate that the leader is satisfied with. Cough cough. Sure enough, when he saw that everyone was focusing their attention on him, the Jonin felt secretly happy, and at the same time he coughed in a dignified manner and spoke. Yes, old man Kosuke was once a teammate of mine during the Genin period. His full name is Maraboshi Kosuke. Genin? Is the old man who cooks the food also a ninja? Izumi couldn't help but be surprised, and the thinking in Senju Mayuki's eyes became even more serious. This name, this sense of familiarity, this old man has definitely appeared in the plot. How you can't tell the little girl Kwan was the only one on the table who had the best compliments. Unexpectedly, she actually asked the question. The Jonin immediately continued with a smile on his face that you would never guess. Not only cooking, this old man is also involved in a wide range of other areas. It is said that he has been a genin for almost 40 years. Even the second generation Hokage once fought alongside him. Ha ha ha. Of course this is what he said himself, and only he knows whether it is true or not. Don't even think about it, it must be fake. The clever Chunin colleagues immediately followed and flattered the captain. The captain of his team was already a Jonin. If he had really fought with the second Hokage, he would be a minister or something like that now. Old man Guji is good at everything, but he still loves to brag at such an old age. Ha ha ha. That's it. The atmosphere at the dinner table became joyful again. After hearing this, Hyuga Takuma and Izumi both couldn't help but shake their heads in laughter. They also felt that old man Kosuke must be bragging. Only Senju Mayuki, when he heard the keywords 40 years of genin and second Hokage, his mind suddenly became clear. Oops, I remembered it. Isn't this the legendary 10,000-year genin with 4 seals of water dragon bullets? Chapter 86 Fengshen Thor. What? The group of people had a great meal and were about to leave when they suddenly heard a shrill scream coming from outside. What's the situation? The Jonin, who was secretly satisfied with his arrangement today, immediately shouted dissatisfied and shouted outside. Team, Captain. It's those brothers, the god of wind and god of thunder who ran out. The Jonin immediately frowned upon hearing this. Damn it, why is it at this time? But then I thought about it. Now that we have enough people, it is also an opportunity to introduce the 2 most special guys in the prison to the 3 new colleagues. So I immediately said to all the subordinates, let's go, let's introduce these brothers to our new colleagues. Yes, Captain. All the Chunin responded with roars. As the saying goes, drinking makes you brave. Although I didn't drink today, the lively atmosphere just now really aroused everyone's emotions. Of course, the most important thing is that now the captain is in front, so he is afraid of a bull. God of wind and thunder? Who is that? A group of more than a dozen ninjas went out under the leadership of the Jonin. Izumi, who heard the name for the first time, asked in a low voice. They are a pair of very greedy brothers with extremely strong strength. I heard that they killed all their companions during the mission because they had no food to eat. It was sent in by Tsunade-sama herself. Anyway, 2 very difficult people. At this time, even Ihara Iwanda became unusually serious. As soon as the group of people walked out of the small cafeteria, they saw 2 fat men like mountains at the door of the kitchen, grabbing a genin and tossing it back and forth. Seeing this, the Jounin quickly stepped forward and shouted, "Hey, you 2. Put him down quickly." The god of wind and thunder god immediately turned their heads and looked over when they heard the sound. When they saw the Jounin with an unkind expression, they immediately ran over happily dong dong dong, and then lay down on the ground just like the god of thunder pretending to be a lizard. Big brother, I'm hungry. Spring. What kind of difficult brother is that? Why do they look like 2 idiots? Ihara Iwanda seemed to see her doubts, so he explained in a low voice, don't look at them like this now. It's just because the captain has figured out their temper. As long as they are given food, they won't cause trouble. But once their appetite cannot be satisfied, the scene. Okay. After taking the food brought by the Genin and giving half to each of the wind god and the thunder god, the Jonin immediately urged them, after eating, go back quickly and don't cause any trouble to me again. No. However, this method, which has always worked well in the past, was strangely rejected today. Someone said that you are holding a gourmet banquet. We also want to eat food that is 100 times more delicious. You still have to eat until you're full. When the Jounin heard this, his heart skipped a beat, and he immediately realized that someone must be using these two idiots to cause trouble. Thinking of this, he hurriedly winked at the genin who had just taken the food. However, the genin came closer with a grimace and said, "That was the last one just now." The Jonin's eyes widened for a moment. Where are the remaining ingredients? He remembered asking old man Guji to purchase at least 30 servings. When they came in just now, they just snatched away and ate them all. Trouble. Brother, big brother, bring out the delicious food for us. What? A layer of cold sweat suddenly broke out on the Jonin's face. What? I'm now. Seeing his reaction, the two silly guys who were pretending to be cute just now immediately changed their expressions. You guys must have finished all the delicious food. After saying that, the two people immediately stood up with a bang and stared at the Jounin angrily. It felt like they would immediately get angry and lose their temper if they didn't hear a satisfactory answer. The Jounin was sweating even more. While guarding against the two of them, he gestured to his subordinates behind his back to remind them to be prepared. Go along with the sound of swallowing. Senju Mayuki and the others immediately noticed that these colleagues all secretly took out their weapons with serious faces, and some had even taken out the communication gunpowder, obviously preparing to find an opportunity to run out and call for support. If you're a wall, just a wall, it's better than being crushed to death by these two big idiots. Besides, isn't there someone up there who is supporting me? Are you guys going to fight with our brothers, the god of wind and thunder, and not give us anything to eat? The anger on the face of the god of wind and thunder became even stronger. As he spoke, he took a step forward aggressively. The threat couldn't be more obvious. Allow. Captain, can you trap them for a while? The Jounin who was about to give the order was suddenly interrupted by Senju Mayuki. Although he was a little annoyed, he still seriously considered his own combat power, and then gritted his teeth and answered, 1.5 minutes should be fine. What do you ask for this? A member of the second team next to him asked, but his eyes were fixed on the god of wind and god of thunder the whole time, not daring to relax in any way. You all also know that my power is ice. At the critical moment, Senju Mayuki quickly stated his plan without leaving any ink. As long as you can trap them for a while, I can try to freeze them from the body. Yup. Everyone's eyes suddenly lit up when they heard his words. No matter how powerful these two guys are in fighting, the organs in their bodies are still fragile. Okay, leave it to us. The momentum of the guards rose instantly. The Jounin, whose confidence was greatly increased, did not hold back and started with a water release. Water rush wave. A tornado-like water flow instantly appeared around him. It quickly spun up into the air and then attacked the god of wind and god of thunder like a waterfall. The battle begins. Whoosh whoosh, dozens of shurikens and kunai were thrown towards the two of them almost at the same time. However, the notoriously evil god of wind and god of thunder were indeed not immune. Dozens of shurikens and kunai piercing their bodies were like scratching an itch. Ouch. You guys. How dare you attack us? After roaring angrily, the two brothers immediately roared and crashed into each other like two big tanks. Water escape. Water whip. Earth escape. Mud swamp. Wind escape. Big breakthrough. 10 chunin and 10 different ninjutsus, as if they had been rehearsed countless times, worked together in tacit agreement to knock the two fat men back again and again. No matter how angry the wind god and the thunder god were, they still couldn't stop. One step forward. It's now. The Jounin shouted loudly, and the remaining 3 chunin immediately formed seals at the same time without hesitation. Drink. 20 talismans attached to the surrounding area at some unknown time shone brightly at the same time. Sealing technique. Sealing array. Brother. My body suddenly became so heavy. Is it because I'm too hungry? Yes, Thor. I can't move either. We are really too hungry. It's up to you, Zenyu. Sigh. Upon hearing this, Senju Mayuki took a deep breath and then suddenly pushed out the 2 palm-long ice needles that had been condensed in her hand for a long time. Go with. Whoosh, it seems like something stung me. Brother burst. Click. X22 fierce ice sculptures took shape instantly. Freeze. The remaining water stains on the ground were not wasted, and they were all reinforced under his control. Because of its small size, the cold contained in the ice needle is naturally far less than that of the ice arrow. But similarly, the human body is far from comparable to stone. What's more, Senju Mayuki didn't mean to kill them, so these were enough. Oh. Seeing this scene, all the Chunin and Genin couldn't help but cheered. Well done Zenryu. We finally have the means to subdue the god of wind and thunder. I will never have to be angry with these two idiots again. He behind the kitchen door, listening to the sounds outside. Merihoshi Kosuke put down the hand seals he had made with a smile, and then leisurely returned to the stove, and continued to wash the pot. Senju Mainjetsu, Sandame-sama, you seem to have really found a reliable future this time. Chapter 87 Narashikamaru, there is always one day in every month. Since they rectified all the prisoners in the prison on the first day they took office, the work of the 3 members of team in Konoha prison can be said to be going smoothly. Whenever the 3 of them are on duty, the prisoners on that day are all extremely honest. Work if you are told to work, eat if you are told to eat, and line up if you are told to line up. He is simply more obedient than a primary school student. Therefore, the genin who did odd jobs increasingly liked the days when the 5th group of guards were on duty. Moreover, considering that the colleagues in the 5th group are still young, the jounin even held a special meeting to study and decide that the 5th group would be fixed on the day shift from now on, and the other 4 groups would make adjustments on their own. As soon as this resolution was announced, it was unanimously approved by all colleagues. Jounin, don't think too much, this is a democratic voting meeting. Everyone only needs to decide whether to raise their hands or not based on their true thoughts. It is also because of the enthusiastic care of colleagues that Senju Mayuki and the 3 of them feel very comfortable working here. When working, prisoners are more honest than chickens. They only need to patrol once in a while. After get off work, you have 2 days of rest, where you can freely choose what you want to do. Nowadays, we are working people with jobs and salaries. So Senju Mayuki goes to the orphanage once a week. In addition to continuing to push the children, the most important thing is to express his feelings for Nana to the outside world. Pay attention to. As for the rest of the time, in addition to practicing step by step, I also set aside one day every month according to Narashikaku's schedule, to gather at his house. This is the tradition of Konoha village, and it is also what the ninjas adhere to. Even after graduation, a teacher is still a teacher after all. Isn't it natural that students and teachers often move around and get close to each other? I brought a little deer doll. What about you? Mine is G. Hinata Takuma lifted the gift box in his hand. Last week, the elders of the clan specially purchased these from other places. I thought that teacher Luigi didn't have any special hobbies, so I wanted to bring some for him to try. What about you? Seeing the eyes of his 2 teammates, Senju Mayuki took out a huge, colorful lollipop from his arms without hiding it. Hey, it's sweets again. How much do you like sweets? Haha. Senju Mayuki just smiled and didn't explain much. You natives know a hammer. Think about Shikamaru's listless appearance when he grows up. If this guy becomes a fatter and plumper than Choji, or if his mouth is full of rotten teeth. In fact, from the first time he visited, Narashikaku had specifically told them not to bring gifts. Because they are young and are still their own students. As the top group of ninjas in Konoha village, their family is really not lacking in such things. The students are already very happy to come visit them together. Later, the 3 of them couldn't resist and finally decided to bring some gadgets to the teacher's child, Narashikamaru, every time they went there, just to make the child happy. Shikaku-sensei, we are here to bother you again. What are you talking about? It's too late for me to be happy that you can come. Seeing the 3 students who are getting more energetic after working, Narashikaku will be happy from the bottom of his heart every time. Every time when the party is approaching, he will wait eagerly at home. When he hears their voices, he immediately jumps. He personally ran to the gate to greet him. How have you been at work lately? Is there anything you don't like? As soon as he entered the door, Izumi was pulled aside by Narayashino, the teacher's wife of the 3 of them, to talk about family affairs. Hinata Takuma entered the tea room with Narashikaku carrying tea leaves. As for Senju Mayuki, she took the deer doll that Izumi had brought over and found Narashikamaru, who was lying on the corridor outside the door, watching the clouds and thinking about life. Hearing the footsteps and turning his head slightly to see the person approaching, Shikamaru, who was only 2 years old, was stunned for a moment, then let out a long sigh. Is it that time of the month again? Hey, kid. Even if you don't get up to greet me when you see me, you still sigh? Are you dissatisfied with me? Shikamaru didn't want to talk to you, so he turned over and exposed his butt to you. Haha. Boy, you are so cool now. Of course Senju Mayuki will not be really angry. He just glanced sideways at the room first, and when he found that no one was paying attention, he immediately took out the lollipop that was about the size of a baby's fist from his arms, and then walked to Shikamaru in a few steps. At first, he still had those impatient eyes, but when Shikamaru saw clearly what Senju Mayuki was holding, his eyes widened, and he opened his mouth to shout, "Ugh! Ooh! Ugh!" With Senju Mayuki's current strength and speed, how could he possibly be able to shout out if he was prepared? I saw him pressing Shikamaru's arm with one hand and holding a lollipop in his mouth with the other. The sweet Shikamaru struggled for more than 10 seconds before letting him go. Then, before Shikamaru could say anything, with a smug look on his face, he directly attacked his army. "Do you still dare to drag me like this in the future?" Shikamaru looked at him angrily, wanting to call mom a million times in his heart. But when I thought about it again, that hateful woman was there too. And my mother didn't know what kind of ecstasy was poured into her by that woman, but she was very pampered by her. Damn it. You take advantage of your age to bully children. You are even more despicable than that woman. Yo, upon hearing this, the smile on Senju Mayuki's face suddenly became stronger. I seem to hear someone saying bad things about Kwan Yu. Shikamaru was so angry that he almost wanted to vomit blood. But when I thought about the terror of that woman, I finally got discouraged and had no choice but to confess in a sad and angry voice, "What on earth do you want to do before you give up?" Me. Senju Mayuki looked at the dear doll that had just fallen on Shikamaru, then at the lollipop in his hand, and then pretended to be very sad and said, "I can give away all the toys that other people bring, but the gifts I brought were so ruthlessly rejected. It's really sad." Shikamaru stared at Senju Mayuki for a while with his representative dead fish eyes, and finally angrily accepted his fate, but he was still muttering viciously, "You actually threaten a child like that? How could Dad have such a despicable student like you?" As soon as she saw him giving in, the sadness on Senju Mayuki's face suddenly turned into pride. "You can't even handle such a simple threat and frame up from me. How could your father have a son as stupid as you?" As he spoke, he casually broke off a small piece from the lollipop and handed it to him. He also said something, "Children can't eat too much at one time, so let's start with this humph." Maybe that sentence really touched Shikamaru's weakness. After hearing it, he never said a word again, but honestly threw the lollipop pieces into his mouth in one bite. Keek bang. "Okay, I finished eating. Now you are satisfied." In order to prove that he was not lying, Shikamaru even raised his head and opened his mouth to show him, and moved his tongue to prove that it was indeed clean inside. Senju Mayuki nodded with great satisfaction. When Shikamaru saw this, he immediately asked him unhappily, "Then I can go?" After saying that, without waiting for an answer, he snorted and turned around to walk into the house. Aha. Senju Mayuki continued to nod with a smile, and then waited until Shikamaru's front foot just stepped into the house. "Kwan, this bratty brat just said bad things about you." Shikamaru turned around with eyes wide open. "You." However, the next second, a voice came from behind that he would never forget. "Dear Meru. I'm not. I didn't." He's up. PFFT. Seeing Izumi, he grabbed his son and played with it like a clay figure, pinching his face and twisting his nose. Then listening to his son's pitiful begging for mercy, Narushikaku couldn't even drink tea anymore, and he smiled hurriedly. He started to persuade, "Don't be like this, Koizumi." Shikamaru is still a child, however. Before he could even lift his butt off the stool as he spoke, Naruyoshino yelled back in the next second, "What nonsense are you talking about, old man? Zayakun is such a beautiful and lovely girl. Are you still afraid that she will hurt your son or something? Drink your tea." Narushikaku, "Hey. Okay, son, I'm sorry. There are 2 men in our family. Dad can't involve himself anymore." Shikamaru, "Ugh. Woohoo. Mom. Whose mother are you?" Staring at the sky speechlessly. Why do little kids like me have to endure this kind of torture every month? Exclamation mark. When will this kind of day end? Chapter 88. The first meeting with Naruto. Going to work, getting off work, practicing, visiting teachers. A week, a month, a quarter, half a year. The peaceful days passed like this day by day, and the physical fitness and strength of the 3 people in class continued to grow rapidly. Just when Senju Mayuki once thought that he would spend his growth period smoothly until he was strong enough to participate in some important plots, he met an unexpected person by the river. Still by the river in the east of the village, Senju Mayuki was turning the grilled fish branches unconsciously while imagining her new ability in her mind. Since we can control ice to shape at a distance, can we combine chakra and some characteristics of shadow clones to directly condense ice clones in the distance to achieve the effect of consciousness coming? The dry wood in the fire crackled, and the delicious grilled fish gradually exuded an alluring fragrance. Grumble who? Deng deng deng. A child about the same age as Shikamaru was frightened by his sudden and fierce shout and took several steps back. However, after looking at him, the child's eyes were finally attracted by the grilled fish and did not leave. Grumble. The child held his stomach that was still growling and looked at the grilled fish in the elder brother's hand that was a little burnt because it had not been turned for a long time. He couldn't help but swallowed and reminded loudly, "The fish is burnt. Do you know how to grill fish?" Only then did Senju Mayuki come to his senses and quickly took the fish away from the fire rack. This appearance and mouth habits, as well as that dazzling blonde hair and beard. Uzumaki Naruto finally met. Looking at the dirty child in front of her, Senju Mayuki suddenly had a sudden illusion in her heart. It's as if I'm still watching anime, as if everything before was just my imagination. Gilulululu, I'm not reminding you, because I want to eat. I can also catch fish myself, and the fish I bake will definitely taste better than yours. Logically speaking, it is a very happy thing to finally meet the protagonist after 2 years in this world. But for some reason, in such a scene, especially after seeing his stomach growling like this and still pretending to be strong, Senju Mayuki didn't feel any joy at all, only inexplicably sad. Even if it was for the sake of confidentiality, it wouldn't make a child less than 3 years old like this, right? Isn't there a more appropriate and fair way to deal with this child who doesn't know anything? Want to eat? Go. After hearing his question, Naruto swallowed hard first, but still did not step forward. Instead, he repeated it loudly, "I can also catch fish." But while he was talking, his eyes seemed to be fixed on the grilled fish and could no longer leave. "Tell me your name, and I'll treat you to grilled fish." Really? Naruto's eyes lit up immediately, and he hurriedly stepped forward and squatted next to the fire. While staring at the grilled fish, he said a little shyly, "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Here, take this and eat it. Be careful not to burn your mouth." "Thank you, brother." Naruto happily took the branch and stuffed it into his mouth. Even if it was burned and hissed haha, it could not stop him from swallowing it at all. "Eat slowly, it's not enough. If it burns your mouth, you'll be the only one who hurts." Seeing Naruto gobbling up the food, Senju Mayuki slipped on another fish and grilled it, but her heart felt a little hard to calm down for a long time. "I just have better luck. If I swap identities and memories with him, can I do better than him?" Uzumaki. Are there still people from the Uzumaki clan in Konoha village? Although he knew this very well, in his memory, it seemed that the third generation had always arranged for someone to keep an eye on Naruto secretly, so he still pretended to ask a few questions. "Hyuha brother, what did you say?" Naruto asked vaguely, while concentrating on the grilled fish. "Forget it, it's fine. Anyway, it's just a show. We just had lunch now. Why are you so hungry? And you have come so far away from the village? Didn't your parents ask you to go home for dinner?" Naruto paused while eating the fish, and his voice was obviously much lower. "I don't have parents, and I have never met them. I asked several times, but grandpa didn't tell me who they were. Oh, I'm sorry. Suck." When he heard what he said, Naruto suddenly sniffed and said loudly, pretending to be cheerful, "It doesn't matter. I'm used to it. Even if I'm alone, I will grow up well. Now I can make noodles and wash clothes by myself, and I can also catch and grill fish." "Really?" Senju Mayuki also seemed to be infected by his optimism, and a smile appeared on her face, and then she handed him the branch she had just strung. As a thank you, let me taste your grilled fish technique. Naruto, oh. No, no problem. I bit the bullet and took the branch. Although I'm still very young, I know that I can't escape eating other people's food, and I have to repay the favor. Just look at mine. While Naruto was recalling Senju Mayuki's action of grilling fish just now, he pretended to cheer himself up. It will definitely be no worse than your burned one. However, in less than a minute, a fresh fish turned into ashes under their eyes. This doesn't count. You'll get nervous if you keep looking at me. Looking at Senju Mayuki's slightly speechless eyes, Naruto was obviously panicked and blushing. He hurriedly ate the charcoal in 3 mouthfuls, and then took a new skewer from the stone next to it. Hey, don't eat it if it's burnt. This little guy is afraid of the waste he has caused. Will I blame him? Seeing Naruto's tightly pursed lips and the obvious awkwardness in his movements, Senju Mayuki suddenly had a realization in his heart. Although he seems careless on the surface, Naruto is still very sensitive and delicate when facing people who show kindness to him. It's a pity that until the end, Senju Mayuki failed to eat the grilled fish that Naruto said was more powerful than you. Even if he hadn't forcibly stopped him later, this little guy would have dared to eat every failed char. Only when you put it in your stomach can you feel at ease. Next time, when they were about to say goodbye, he didn't know whether it was because he was unwilling or something else, but Naruto's eyes began to sparkle with tears, but he still pretended not to care and said loudly, "Next time I will definitely cook a better grilled fish than you." After saying that, she looked at him eagerly with eyes that seemed provocative but actually expected. "Actually, you want to ask me if we will meet again next time? Okay, you little brat has wasted so much of my fish. I won't give up until you let me taste some delicious grilled fish." I can't tell exactly why. Maybe it's also because I'm not willing to give in. In short, Senju Mayuki, who had always thought of herself as a calm-tempered person, felt a little inexplicable at this moment, and she made a promise with Naruto. "I will come here often to wait for you in the future. You kid, don't ever think about escaping without authorization." The tears finally couldn't be controlled anymore. In the moment, before he was embarrassed, Naruto suddenly turned his back to him. HMPH. Don't underestimate people. I, Naruto Uzumaki, am not the kind of liar who keeps his word. Just wait and see. Okay, it's an agreement then. Whoever breaks the agreement will be the puppy. It's a promise. Who's afraid of whom? At this point, Naruto couldn't help it anymore, and wiped his eyes with his arm, then turned around, and stretched out his little finger pretending not to care. Seeing this, Senju Mayuki also stretched out his little finger, to hook up with him. The agreement has been made, and whoever reneges on it will be the puppy. Wang. Naruto's face suddenly seemed to be filled with sunshine, and then he threw away his 2 little arms, and ran towards the village. "I will definitely bake better fish than you next time. Just wait and see." The voice is so bright and exciting. It was as if this agreement was also the light that penetrated the darkness for him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. Educate the prince from a young age. Hey, you brat, do you know how to grill fish? You've wasted so many fish. Naruto, who had grilled another fish, although his face was red and a little embarrassed, but after seeing that Senju Mayuki showed no sign of anger, he still had the courage to retort. What? I've told you several times that I will get nervous if you look at me. The fish is not cooked well because you keep staring at me. Although it is a rebuttal, in fact, whether it is the tone or expression, it is more like a little brother acting coquettishly to his close brother once, twice, 5 times, 10 times. In the beginning, Naruto would always be cautious, fearing that if he did not do well, he would make Senju Mayuki angry. Only later, when he realized that this brother was indeed different from other people in the village, did Naruto dare to slowly open up his heart. Later, almost every time Senju Mayuki went to the river, she would see a small figure sitting by the river with her chin propped up, waiting silently. And no matter how long you wait, whether Senju Mayuki leaves early or late, every time you see him, you will be surprised and take the initiative to stand up and say hello to him. Obviously, after feeling cared for and treated as an equal by Senju Mayuki, Naruto, who had been alone for so long, had gradually developed a tendency to rely on him. And in the process of contact, to be honest, Senju Mayuki has always wanted to meet Kyuubi. After all, that Sundeer Fox and other things are really cute to the time traveler, but fortunately, he just thought about it and didn't really take action right away. Firstly, he came because he knew that there must be Anbu watching around Naruto at any time. Secondly, Senju Mayuki has never been very proficient in sealing techniques, and he is very worried that, if something goes wrong, it will not be handled well. It's not that I'm afraid that Kyuubi will run out, but I'm mainly worried that, if something strange happens, I won't be able to explain it to the third generation old man. Although his current strength is close to that of a Jonin, the upper limit of physical strength is still a weakness, and it is still far from comparable to the level of Naruto, so most of the time he just treated Naruto as an ordinary orphan. Talking, laughing, and taking care of him. At most, I occasionally express my views and opinions on certain things while taking care of them. For example, one time when he was catching fish, Naruto somehow got emotional and asked, "Brother, we caught the big fish and ate it. Will the little fish be sad if they can't find their parents? Will not." I still remember that Senju Mayuki gave him the answer very simply, "We are the ones who come out to hang out, and we are the most trustworthy and loyal. How could we do something like tearing apart other people's families?" As he said that, he took out a small fish from the side and threaded it on the branch. "Look, the first one you burnt just now is Zayaoyu's father, and the second one you burnt is Zayaoyu's mother. Plus this one, look. Now Zayaoyu's family of 3 are all neatly together. Here it is, so it won't be sad, right, Naruto?" Open bracket question mark question mark question mark question mark closed bracket exclamation mark. For another example, one time he happened to see 2 dogs running past while being intimate. Naruto, who was still ignorant of everything in the world, asked a question that he would never forget. "Brother Zenyu, why does the big dog keep licking the smaller dog with his tongue? As if he is trying to please it?" This issue can be said to be a very serious academic topic that deserves to be taken seriously. Naruto, remember, that big dog is a licker, no house. Since they met, this was the first time he explained a problem to Naruto with such a serious expression and attitude. In order to increase Naruto's attention, he even spent an entire afternoon explaining to him what is dog licking, the definition of dog licking, the 10 characteristics of dog licking, and dog licking bis principles, truths, theorems, axioms, truths, and at the end, he warned him very solemnly, "You must always remember this. If you dare to be a licking dog in the future, don't say you know me. The other kids in the village won't care about you anymore. Even the only house you live in, now that your parents left behind, won't be able to keep it. From now on you can only live in garbage dumps or bridge caves." Having said this, she looked into Naruto's eyes seriously and asked him, "Naruto, you don't want me to be a guest at your home, but you can only take me to a garbage dump or a bridge, right?" That, of course. Although he still doesn't quite understand what kind of dog a licking dog is and what it has to do with the house he lives in. For Naruto now, he doesn't want his brother Zenzuki to have to go to the garbage dump when he is a guest. But it is absolutely true. That day, the young Naruto deeply felt the horror of licking a dog for the first time, and the consciousness of licking a dog equals losing everything also took root deeply in his young heart. Fortunately, this kind of thing doesn't happen often after all. You are taking care of a child, so most of the time, Senju Mayuki talks to him about relatively relaxed topics, such as whispering and the like. Naruto, remember, we are all civilized and polite people. If someone doesn't agree with your point of view, or someone bullies you, remember not to be impulsive, but to convince the person with reason and influence the other person with love. Of course, the persuading people with reason I'm talking about here can also be divided into presenting facts and reasoning and truth. That makes people convinced. If the other party is more sensible and can listen to advice, then we will talk to him 1v1 and use words to resolve conflicts and avoid disputes. For example, Shikamaru. Although with Naruto's logic and language organization skills, there is a high probability that Shikamaru will kill him instantly. But if you meet a very stubborn guy who won't listen, no matter what you say, you need to change your perspective and try to persuade him with the truth. Of whoever has the big fist speaks well. The experience and feelings are generally quite useful. For example, Sas, I persuade you so loudly and angrily, but you won't listen. Pia. Do you listen? Still not listening. Pia pia. Do you listen? Pia 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 pia. Keep beating until your eyes are full of tears and your lips are pressed tightly with shame and anger. Gee. Think about the scene in the ninja school in the future. As soon as Naruto calls Sas, give it to me Azu, he will immediately act like a frustrated little daughter-in-law with a grieved face and dare not refuse to agree. Ha 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 ha. Boil. It's so touching. So Naruto, for the sake of future happiness and for the future to be able to protect the weak and punish the bad guys, start developing a good habit of exercising from now on. This way, when you grow up, you will have the strong physique and strength to convince more bad guys. Right. When he heard this, Naruto immediately couldn't help but nodded excitedly, his eyes filled with admiration for the title hero and the beautiful longing for himself to become a great hero who punishes evil and promotes good in the future. In my heart, I have deeply laid a solid foundation of philosophy of speaking and convincing people with reason. Chapter 90 Looking for Yikang. Dang dang. Hokage-sama, Senju Shinjutsu has arrived. Please come in. Lord Hokage, are you looking for me? He seeing Senju Mayuki come in, the third Hokage immediately put down the work at hand and raised his head with a smile on his face. Seeing him looking more upright and energetic now, I couldn't help but feel satisfied beyond words. Okay. How have you been at work lately? Is it going well? Are there any difficulties or things that you need Grandpa to help you with? If so, feel free to say it. There are only two of us here, and no one else will hear it. Thank you, Grandpa Hokage. Faced with the unabashed bias of the third generation old man, Senju Mayuki could no longer deliberately maintain reserve and distance, so she could only say a little shyly, my job is pretty good, and my former colleagues also take good care of us. I even feel a little too relaxed. Hey, it's good to relax. If your work is easier, you will have more time and space to improve your strength, right? The third Hokage didn't care that he failed to sell the favor. He just smiled and chatted with him for a few words, and then became a little more serious, and told him the purpose of finding him. I came to see you today. Actually, I have a relatively important task that I want to entrust you to do. Yes. Hokage-sama, please just tell me. Is such that. The third Hokage said as he stroked the envelope on the table. After a slight hesitation, he handed it forward. This is the military action plan that our spies in Iwa Ninja Village heard about after Senju Mayuki took it over. The third Hokage said in a somewhat cryptic tone. Although we are currently in a state of truce with the Iwa Ninja Village, based on my understanding of the old man Inoki, he must still be thinking about the land and resources of the far country. Oh, by the way, Inoki is at Tsuchikage of Iwagakure village. He is an old man who has experienced many wars, and even experienced the wars during the time of the first Hokage. He is an old man who cannot be ignored. After speaking here, he paused to give Senju Mayuki some time to think, and then continued, we are now in a critical period of war with Kumogakure village. At this time, we can no longer spare our hands to do anything to Iwagakure village. So I thought it would be better to take the opportunity to do a favor and send this information to the Alliance's Sunagakure village. It will definitely be very beneficial for us in Konoha to allow the allies to gain an advantage in the war. Yes. After hearing this, Senju Mayuki immediately stuffed the intelligence letter into her clothes and put it away. Then, is this information going to be delivered to Lord Kazakage? No. The third Hokage heard this and immediately shook his head, then smiled and picked up the pipe and lit it. Aren't you very familiar with Yikang, the one who can escape from bloodstains? Then help your friend take a further step in Sand Hidden Village. Yes, Hokage-sama. Guaranteed to complete the task. Wait a minute. Senju Mayuki turned around again when he heard the sound and saw the third Hokage taking out something like a small piece of paper and handing it over. This is what the Anbu found out, where Yikang appeared recently, so you don't have to make too many detours. Thank you, Hokage-sama. This is your first time to go out on a mission alone. You must remember that the battlefield is no different from other places. Everything is based on your own safety. Do you understand? Yes. He lowered his head heavily, and then Senju Mayuki turned around and left neatly. The third Hokage did not stop him this time, but smoked his pipe silently for a while. After a while, he suddenly asked, "Are you sure the information about Yi Kang is true?" "Yes, Hokage-sama." Unmasked Anbu appeared silently in front of the table, knelt on one knee, and lowered his head and answered seriously, "My subordinate found this out personally. I dare to guarantee it with my life." The third Hokage silently waved his hand to ask the Anbu to retreat, and the smile in his eyes became stronger. Although it's just a letter delivery, since it involves the battlefield, it wouldn't be too much to set him up as a B-level mission. Of course, the main reason why Senju Mayuki was assigned this task was because he could fly. After all, the key point of military intelligence is timeliness. Of course, the sooner it is delivered, the better. And that Yi Kang, if the information is really true, then the friendship this brat made during the Chunin examination may really bring unexpected benefits to Konoha village. After leaving the Hokage's office, Senju Mayuki immediately created a clone to explain and say goodbye to Tsunade, Izumi, Naruto and others. The main body simply went home, tidied up briefly, put on mission specific equipment, and then left amid Nonoi's instructions. Is he going to be okay? Looking at the figure that was quickly disappearing, Gangzati, who had avoided many detours for decades at such a young age, couldn't help but worry. He is still so young after all. Is it really okay to leave the village alone to perform a mission? After all, he is an elite member of the Thousand Hands clan. On the first day he took office, he directly eliminated all the prisoners in the prison, including the two wind gods and thunder gods who are said to be particularly dangerous. Hearing what he said, another professional goalkeeper of the same age as him, Shinai Izumo, immediately struck him with squinting eyes. If you have time to worry about him, why not worry about yourself? When will you be transferred to the next position where you can better showcase yourself? It's outrageous. Two young men aged 15 or 6 are in their prime. As a result, my first formal job turned out to be a doorman! Exclamation mark. Who can I ask to reason with this? That's it. After leaving the main gate, Senju Mayuki ran not far away and turned into the woods. After looking around and seeing that there was no one nearby, a thought came to his mind. Icebird. A large bird with a wingspan of several meters condensed and tuck shape in front of him in the blink of an eye. Let's go. Other birds flap their wings before taking off, but his bird doesn't need to. Instead, it flies up a few meters high before fluttering its wings stiffly a few times. After standing on it and adjusting his balance for a while, the ice bird quickly rose into the air under his control, flying directly towards the direction given and the intelligence. I wonder if Kabuto might be the one who snooped on this information. In order not to worry Nonoi anymore, he did not reveal the information about the Iwa Ninja village when he went back to clean up. He just vaguely said that he was on a mission to deliver a message and got over it. Fortunately, Nonoi was also a regular ninja, so he knew he shouldn't ask and didn't ask, which saved him a lot of trouble. Also, I can take this opportunity to give Yi Kang the thing I tested a few days ago, because he was not sure when Yakira was betrayed by Sand Hidden Village. Senju Mayuki had been feeling a little uneasy since the separation. It was precisely because of this that he was so persistent in developing new abilities. Before that Kune was inserted into his lower back, Yi Kang was extremely loyal to Tsunade village. Therefore, he must and could only find a way to save Yi Kang's life in that conspiracy, so that he could gain the dependence and loyalty of this scorching escaped beauty. Otherwise, it will definitely arouse Yi Kang's suspicion if it is too early, and if it is too late, he will have to learn to find corpses all over the mountains and plains. But, now that there is a chance to get a fresh and warm body, who would be willing to have a cold corpse? Chapter 91, The Grove in the South. Come quickly. More than a day later, there was a battlefield between Sand Hidden Village and Iwagakure Village. In the past few days, I have always felt that the movements in Iwagakure Village are a bit strange. In the tent of the command post, the captains of Tsunade Village were discussing the recent movements of the Iwa ninja troops. What are you afraid of? With Mr. Yi Kang here, no matter what plots and tricks they play, they will be in vain. That's right, we have our heroes to deal with those elites. If we still can't deal with the remaining little bastards, we might as well stop being ninjas and go home together to find our mother. That's it. Listening to the illogical and even blind praise from the captains, Yi Kang felt an indescribable feeling of tiredness. Nimmers, look at these idiots. Are they talking in human language? What else is? No matter what conspiracy the other side makes, Mr. Yi Kang will stand up for it, chap. Aren't you the ones taking risks by co-authoring? What a bunch of lowly old people. He does one thing on the surface and another behind the scenes, and he will play tricks on his own people all day long and encourage others to die. No wonder the gap between Tsunade and Konoha is so big. As long as these old guys are still here, they won't be able to catch up in another 1 year. But I think, since we have noticed the other party's movements, we should more or less. Oh, why are you thinking so much? Didn't I just say that any conspiracy or trick is useless in the face of absolute strength? That's right. After all, you are still a young man, you are frizzy, and you still need to learn more from your seniors. Seeing these old guys chatting with each other, making the young Jounin who had just been promoted, blush and become anxious, Yi Kang really wanted to throw away those old guys' faces with a burning escape. Go up and get rid of the fire. Sigh. Just when Yi Kang was thinking that this meeting was going to end in an anticlimactic manner, she suddenly felt a chill in her palms. When she opened her palms, she saw a few small words made of ice crystals in her palms. See you in the woods south. This is. Why is he here? Yi Kang, who had looked desperate just now, suddenly became energetic, raised his feet, and walked out happily. Hey, Master Yi Kang, where are you going? We are. Oh, you should hold this kind of meeting by yourselves. Just let me know the outcome of the discussion. That's it. Before the words were even spoken, the people quickly disappeared, leaving only a group of Jounin with their own thoughts looking at each other. The few old guys looked at each other vaguely, and they could see the smile hidden in each other's eyes. With the backbone of Yi Kang gone, wouldn't it be easier for the new Jounin who rely on her? It's okay as a young man. It's understandable that you can't sit still. We should keep going and tell her the result in the end. Putting aside the intrigue in the conference tent, Yi Kang, who came out of the tent, took a moment to identify the direction, and then he galloped towards the woods to the south with a cheerful expression on his face. In my anxious mood, the distance of 2 or 3 kilometers was almost reached in the blink of an eye. As soon as I entered the woods, I couldn't wait to shout softly, "Where are you?" Countless ice crystals gathered into a half-sized human figure in front of Yi Kang. Ha, you guys know how to be cool. Although he had long known in his heart that the only person who could use ice release to contact her was Senju Mayuki, but now that he had actually appeared, Yi Kang's voice still couldn't help but rise a little briskly. I haven't seen you in more than half a year, and you've grown so tall. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw that Senju Mayuki's face looked a little uncomfortable, so he immediately asked nervously, "What's wrong with you? Why do you look so bad? Where are Shikaku-senpai and your 2 teammates? Are you in any trouble? Take me there quickly." As he said that, he hurriedly picked him up and wanted to find someone. "Don't worry, there's no one else this time, just me." Listening to this series of almost nonchalant questions, Senju Mayuki looked calm on the surface, but in his heart he was almost overjoyed. To be able to perform like this on the battlefield is not in vain for his early investment. In fact, in order to ensure the timeliness of the information, he did rush all night yesterday, which consumed a lot of energy, which is why he looks so bad now. "Yourself?" Yi Kang was a little surprised immediately, and then looked at him with some suspicion. "You couldn't have sneaked out of Konoha, right? Otherwise, why would the upper echelons of Konoha village allow a precious genius like him to go to such a dangerous place? You have such a rich mind." Senju Mayuki took out the information from his clothes as he spoke, and then said in Yi Kang's doubtful eyes, "This is a piece of information about the military action plan of Iwa Ninja Village. Lord Hokage chose me to deliver the letter, probably because I can fly, and can deliver this information to you faster. Iwa Ninja Village's military plan." He took the envelope with full of doubts, and after reading it quickly, Yi Kang looked at Senju Mayuki with some complicated emotions. Coincidentally, this information was about the changes made to the frontline troops of Tsunade village, and it also happened to be in line with the anomaly mentioned by the Jonin just now. Konoha must have spent a lot of money to get this information, right? How could you give it to us for no reason? Wait, what you just said was, give it to me. Yes, of course I leave it to you. Senju Mayuki looked at her with an expression of ignorance of world affairs. I only know you in Sand Hidden Village. If I don't leave it to you, who can I leave it to? For a moment, Yi Kang's psychology became more complicated. As an ally, Konoha village can immediately send envoys after receiving information that is beneficial to its allies. For the effectiveness of the information, the Third Hokage is even willing to send his beloved to make the trip himself. Look at their magnanimity. Think about your own village again. Government affairs are not good, and the military is in shambles. It is clear that the village is in shambles in every aspect, even worse than Kirigakure village, and is at the bottom of the 5 major countries, but the existing leaders still only focus on tearing each other down. Exhausted. It would be great if I was born in Konoha village, that way you don't have to worry about such stupid things every day. We will definitely not let this heart down. Although he had all kinds of complaints and dissatisfaction in his heart, Yi Kang was still very happy and touched that Senju Mayuki risked such a big risk to deliver information to him. Come in with me and rest for a while. You are so tired, no need, I can go slower when I go back. Senju Mayuki immediately shook his head. Firstly, it was really unnecessary. Secondly, he had another purpose. Looking at Yi Kang's neck, damn, the collar is so tightly covered that I can't see inside. What happened? Yi Kang, who noticed his gaze, immediately touched his neck with some sensitivity. Is there something wrong? Logically speaking, after getting the information, she should go back immediately to carry out targeted exploration and deployment, but since they haven't seen her for so long, and seeing that Zenyu still seems to have something to say, she simply doesn't have to rush for a while. No. Senju Mayuki said, and suddenly took out another necklace. Seeing this scene, Yi Kang's eyes instantly stared like light bulbs, and he trembled unconsciously when he spoke. You, what are you doing? No, no. Are all the children in the Leaf Village so precocious? But isn't he only 7 or 8 years old? I'm already 20 years old, more than 10 years older than him. Wouldn't this be good? I recently developed a new ability, however. Senju Mayuki's attention was all on the necklace at this time, and she didn't notice anything unusual about her at all. As she spoke, she opened the shell of the gem with a squeeze of her hand, revealing the transparent ice crystals inside. Yi Kang. I'm fine. Really? This ice crystal contains part of my chakra and mental power. It functions like a clone that stores properties. He briefly showed the ice crystal to Yi Kang, then closed the gem and handed it over. When you encounter an irresolvable danger or a particularly urgent situation, just inject your chakra into it and you can summon a clone of me. Thank you. Although he felt that it was unlikely that he would need this thing, Yi Kang was really touched by his concern for him and immediately put on the necklace under the watchful eyes of Senju Mayuki. Yeah, the gem is indeed a bit cold. It's a pity that the collar in front of her neck was wrapped too tightly. After putting it on, she couldn't see it. When she tucked it in, she didn't know where the gem fell to make her say such a fascinating thing. A soft cry. Chapter 90 to send her one step further. Okay, the mission is completed. It's time for me to go back. Of course, the most important thing is that he successfully achieved his goal, so Senju Mayuki seemed very happy. After finally nodding to Yi Kang, he summoned the ice bird again and left. In the woods, Yi Kang touched the gem on his chest with one hand and looked at the back of Kaienju Zenyu. It was not until the ice bird rose into the sky that he could no longer see it, and then he suddenly turned around and went back. After returning to the camp, Yi Kang didn't even pay attention to those old things and directly ordered to the ninja on duty at the door, notify all exploration teams and ask their captains to gather at my place immediately. Yes, Master Yi Kang. The young ninja on duty is obviously a loyal fan of Yi Kang. During this time, I had long been impatient when I saw Master Yi Kang being bullied by those old hammers. Now when I saw her looking so high-spirited, I immediately understood that Master Yi Kang was going to make a big move, and he immediately became energetic. I ran to inform him excitedly. Lord Yikang, Master Yikang. Has there been any action, Mr. Yikang? Soon, in less than a minute, 3 young people rushed over with faces full of surprise. And after they all finished greeting and asking questions, they saw the remaining 2 middle-aged captains walking over slowly. And he didn't say anything after arriving, he just nodded to Yikang as a greeting. Yikang took a deep breath, and was very dissatisfied with the way these 2 guys were relying on their old age. But now the military situation is important, and I can't deal with them for the time being. Fortunately, there are 3 teams among them, all of which are energetic young people, and they admire and worship Yikang very much. This is where she can feel a little comfort. As long as she can make good use of the information sent by Zinzuki this time, her achievements will be enough to take her status in Tsunagakure village a step further. When the time comes, none of these old things will be left behind. Come in with me, he said expressionlessly, and while entering the door, he told the ninja on duty at the door, be sure to take precautions, and don't allow anyone to come near here while we are talking. Yes. The 2 middle-aged captains couldn't help but look at each other suspiciously, intent on informing Yikang of his sudden change. But because this place was a little far away from other barracks, and it was difficult to do something excessive under the watchful eyes of the 3 young captains, I had no choice but to suppress my thoughts and follow in. Everyone, I have received information that Iwa Ninja Village is planning a military operation against us. 5 minutes later, the 3 young exploration team captains opened the tent door and rushed out with joyful faces. When they saw the Jounin leaders gathered at the door, they were stunned for a moment and then nodded quickly to them left. Seeing this scene, the old guy who was speaking in an official tone just now frowned, especially when he saw the 2 middle-aged captains who followed him making vague glances. He immediately rolled his eyes and smiled. Then he started chatting with Yikang. Well, Lord Yikang, has there been any military action? You should have informed us. Yes, Yikang, we are all a collective, and any action should be discussed and decided together, to be in line with the rules. However, listening to their official talk, Yikang just glanced at them this time, and whispered a few words to the ninja on duty at the door. It wasn't until the ninja on duty left excitedly that he responded vaguely, it's nothing. I just received a piece of news suddenly, I'm not sure yet, humph. The old guys who had hit a soft spot left without smiling. Of course, they all thought of the scene where Yikang suddenly left during the meeting just now. Obviously, that was the source of the accident. Lord Yikang, have you really taken any action? After the figures of the old guys disappeared, the 3 young Jonin who had supported Yikang during the meeting immediately looked at Yikang with excitement and asked. Of course, Yikang would not fool his supporters like those old guys, but he still didn't know the latest progress of the intelligence, so he had to tell them to go back immediately and inform his subordinates to prepare for battle and wait for orders at any time. Yes. The young Jonin immediately went back to prepare with excitement on their faces, leaving Yikang alone, touching the gem on his chest and thinking silently. Chirp until it was dark. A small communication bird suddenly fluttered and landed on the shoulder of the ninja on duty. Lord Yikang, there is news from the exploration team. Swish. Yikang took the note and read it quickly, then his eyes lit up. Inform them to assemble now. Yes. In less than half a minute, all the 15 teams that had been notified in the afternoon assembled in front of Yikang. Each team had a determined look and did not make any unnecessary noise, which is enough to show the strong discipline of these people. You are standing here now. I believe you have carefully considered it. I won't say any more unnecessary words. Let's go. After simply speaking, Yikang took the lead and galloped towards the east, and all the ninjas behind him immediately suit. However, just as they were about to leave the east tent, they saw a large group of people suddenly appeared in front of them. Seeing this, Yikang had to stop first. What do you mean? She knew all these people, but they were all direct descendants of those old guys. Even she, the commander-in-chief of the detachment, couldn't usually command them. Lord Yikang, didn't you say it this afternoon? We are a whole, and we should take actions together. A familiar voice came, and when Yikang heard the sound and went away, he saw the proud smiling faces of those old men. Intrigue is intrigue, but once they find something that can really get them credit, they are very willing to work hard. Fine. Now that they were blocked, it was unrealistic to go around them, and seeing that the people they brought over were all elites, Yi Kang had no choice but to compromise. But you must promise to obey the command absolutely, otherwise don't blame me for not giving you face. Of course. The old guys didn't care at all about her threats, and even agreed very happily. After all, their purpose is just to grab credit. If anyone dares to hold back at this time, the first ones who won't agree are these old guys. Then keep up. After saying that, Yi Kang speeded up and left again. As expected, those people brought over by the old man didn't do anything else. They waited until all the troops led by Yi Kang had passed before waving their hands and following them. In the night, nearly 100 elite ninjas from the sand-hidden village galloped for hundreds of miles at full speed, bypassing the battle site between the two villages, and finally arrived at their destination after darkness fell, in a forest somewhere in the bird country. In order to break the stalemate, Iwa Ninja Village sent 500 ninjas disguised as caravans in an attempt to sneak into the Kingdom of Winds from the Kingdom of Birds to carry out destructive operations. After meeting with the members of the exploration team and confirming that everything was under control, Yi Kang did not immediately order the battle. Instead, he asked everyone to rest where they were and prepare all the detonating symbols. Time goes by every second. Action. Until it was close to zero. Following Yi Kang's order, countless kunai tied with detonating talismans were thrown towards the caravan's tent at the same time. Boom. In this wave alone, nearly % of the sleepy Iwa Ninja Village troops were wiped out. Most of the rest were stunned by the aftermath of the explosion in their sleep. Attack. With a loud shout, a super large orange fireball with a diameter of 7 or 8 meters rushed into the smoke-filled caravan again. Boom. What? Countless heart-rending screams instantly rang out within a meter range centered on the fireball. However, the ninjas of Tsunade village would not give them any chance to breathe. Nearly 30 Chuninus joined ninjutsu at the same time. Wind escape. Snare net. The other Chunin who could not release the trap also used their own special ninjutsu to name the fish that had escaped the first wave of attacks one by one. What? RRRRR. It's the bastard from Tsunade village. If you can still move, rush out with me. Some people were screaming in pain, and some were organizing a breakout. However, with the support of Yekan's mobile fort, those scattered survivors soon turned into mummies. In less than 5 minutes, the team of 500 people was slaughtered under Yi Kang's organization. But here in Tsunade village, only 13 Chunin who could not be treated were killed, and a large number of detonating charms were consumed. Chapter 93 Daimyo Guard Mission. Morning. When he went out in the morning, as soon as he reached the entrance of the Uchiha clan, Itachi saw a familiar figure from behind and spoke to him. The other party turned his head, and the moment he saw him, his expression suddenly became cheerful. Itachi, are you going on a mission? I'm just going to meet the rest of the team. The mission starts tomorrow. Success can really change a person from the inside out. Izumi is now much more confident and calm when facing Itachi. He is no longer like before graduation, when every time he talks about Itachi, he looks up to him almost like a civilian looking at a genius. Although I don't always remember this matter, every time I think about it, Quan can't help but sincerely thank myself for being in the library that day. If I hadn't mustered up the courage that day, maybe I would still be just an extremely ordinary student in the ninja school. Speaking of missions, how are your friends? Since there was only one road connecting the village to the Uchiha clan, the two naturally walked side by side. Itachi was silent for a moment. It has been a year since he graduated from the ninja school. The girl in front of him of the same age as him already has a formal job, but he is still playing the game of catching cats and walking dogs with his teammates. Well enough. Since he didn't have the temperament to backbite people, he could only say this. Although in fact, that Izumo Tenma has never stopped causing trouble for him for a year. Oh. Quan nodded noncommittally. In fact, she was just looking for something to say. Itachi is such a cold-tempered guy. It's really hard to wait for him to take the initiative to bring up a topic. Then goodbye at the intersection. Itachi wanted to go back to the village, while Izumi wanted to go to work. Please pay attention to safety during the mission. Itachi nodded, looking at Quan's cheerful back. He couldn't help but frown slightly. Chunin, when can I take the Chunin examination? After the war, because the tension between countries has been reduced, traveling between countries has become much safer. Therefore, such tasks are sometimes assigned to teams that are mainly genin. On the roof of the mission distribution institution, a middle-aged man was talking to the 3 students sitting in front of him. Minazuki, the leading Jounin of the second squad Itachi belongs to. The name sounds beautiful, but he is actually a man about 40 years old. He has short black hair and a very rugged appearance. The forehead protector on his head is tied very tightly, almost sinking deeply into his hair, which even makes people feel uncomfortable. Worried about whether it will be uncomfortable. Now he was standing in front of Itachi and the others, looking at the task list in his hand and saying excitedly, "This is the first time that the second squad has received such a high-level mission, so we all must cherish this rare opportunity and show the strength and team spirit of the second squad." Itachi and the 3 of them also held the same mission statement in their hands. Guard mission of Fire Nation Daimyo. Although located within the territory of the country of fire, the Konoha ninja village has an independent governing body headed by the Hokage, and is in a semi-independent state. The Daimyo is nominally above the Hokage, but currently the country's military power must rely on the ninjas of Konoha village, so the 2 parties are not so much a master-slave relationship as an equal alliance. The daimyo of the fire country would visit Konoha village once a year. This is a custom and an important ceremony for both sides, so it will be held as usual even during the war. HMPH, there is no point in teamwork when there is a member of a certain clan who is dragging down the village in the team. The genin sitting next to Itachi muttered quietly at a volume that the teacher couldn't hear. Izumo Pegasus, because his family died in the Kyuubi incident, he was very concerned about what the adults in the village said. It was the Uchiha clan who ordered the Kyuubi to attack the village. This was especially true after the Uchiha clan was moved to the outskirts of the village. A word that I firmly believe in. For this reason, when he met Itachi at the ninja school, Izumo Tenma used his status as a senior student to force him to kneel down and apologize for all the villagers who died in the Kyuubi incident. "Hey, you've been chattering a lot since the beginning. It's very noisy." The only girl nearby heard it and shouted loudly, even louder than the teacher who was explaining the precautions. Sitting opposite Tenma is the only girl in the second class, Inari Shinko. "You've been nagging Itachi all the time when you were in school, and now you've become a genin. How long are you going to hold grudges for such small things?" Itachi, bear. He didn't know if he was being too excited, but in short, when he heard this word, Kwan's figure immediately appeared in his mind, and he thought of the handsome cement gray suit on her body. "It's so noisy. She's just a woman, but she's still so verbose. You two calm down." Minazuki immediately showed a troubled look on his face, but the 2 of them still stared at each other, with no intention of stopping the argument. They have been getting along for a year, but he, the teacher who leads the group, still can't do anything about the current situation, where they quarrel every time they meet. Ugh. Itachi couldn't stand the embarrassment of the 3 of them, and couldn't help but sigh slightly. When Izumo Tenma saw it, he immediately rushed up with anger. "Hey, why are you sighing? I really can't get along with them." Itachi stood up directly with his eyes closed. "Asshole, don't even think about escaping." "Itachi, it's because you always have this attitude that guy gets more and more complacent. Even if you are younger than him, you are still a genin, so why don't you scold this idiot in return?" Itachi looked at Yuki and ignored the 2 of them. "Are there only 4 of us responsible for guarding the daimyo?" That's true on the surface. Being able to be rescued from the embarrassment just now, Minazuki was obviously relieved, so he quickly introduced the information he knew to the students. But privately, the Enbu will send a team of 4 to operate secretly. And speaking of it, the daimyo is also accompanied by an independent guard force composed of some elite ninjas from the land of fire, the 12 guardian ninjas. In other words, we are just formal escorts. Well, that's right. After Yuki answered Itachi's question, he immediately continued. "After the war, the journey has become very safe, so every year the task of guarding the Lord will be given to the team of the most active genin that year. In other words, this is a very honorable task." Upon hearing this, Izumo Tenma and Inari Kokoro's eyes immediately shifted to Itachi. Rather than saying that he is in the second class, it is actually better to say that he was selected. Although Itachi was obviously aware of their gaze, he still stared at the data without saying a word. Gather at the main entrance at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. Don't be late. Izumo Tenma and Inarika Koro each said yes, and Itachi also nodded silently. Then, disband. As soon as Minazuki Yuki finished speaking, he disappeared immediately, leaving only 3 genin in the same place. The village really likes you. Izumo Tenma's eyes were filled with undisguised dissatisfaction and jealousy. Hey, can you talk to Itachi in a different tone? TUI. In response to Inarika Koro's complaint, Izumo Tenma just spat at his feet. Your attitude is really bad. Every day, it's like this. The same daily life. How long do I have to stay in this environment? Itachi almost sighed, but thinking that he was in front of the other 2 people, he swallowed it back, before letting it out. See you tomorrow then. Asshole, don't even think about running away. I haven't finished telling you yet. Izumo Tenma immediately shouted and chased after him, but Inarika Soko suddenly grabbed his clothes. What are you doing? You keep nagging like this every time. As a ninja, you are really annoying. Whose classmate are you? You always say that to me. You don't even look at him. You always have this condescending attitude. Itachi listened to the quarrel between the 2 people and walked forward without looking back. Chunin. If they continue to make so much noise, will they have a chance to take the Chunin exam next year? Chapter 94 I'm the ninja of Konoha, Itachi Uchiha. I think every year, Konoha village is really far away. During the break, the old man sitting on the tree stump stared at the teacup in his hand and said, his face is full of wrinkles caused by old age, and he wears a fan-shaped crown on his head. This man was the daimyo of the Land of Fire. In addition to the luxurious sedan, he was surrounded by 2 of the 12 guardian ninjas, a dozen followers, and Itachi's second squad. The group is on the road from the capital of the Land of Fire to Konoha village. They are currently halfway through the journey. The originally flat road on the outskirts of the capital has gradually turned into a steep mountain road, surrounded by forests full of life. Daimyo-sama, if we don't hurry up, we won't be able to reach the village before nightfall. In front of the daimyo, Minazuki Yuki acted a little timid. A jounin would bow his head so humbly, and even be very polite to the 12 guardian ninjas. Seeing him like this, Izumo Tenma and Inarika Koro were a little stunned. This was the first time they saw their teacher behave like this. Oh, well. The daimyo sighed and stood up slowly, the fan-shaped crown on his head shaking uncontrollably. The 12 guardian ninja who were protecting him immediately went over to hold his arms. Mr. Minazuki. However, at this moment, Itachi, who had been on alert, suddenly stared ahead and shouted softly, "What's up?" While Minazuki Yuki asked, his eyes followed Itachi's gaze, and the relaxed expression before suddenly disappeared and turned into a serious expression. Seeing the change in their expressions, Izumo Tenma and Inarika Koro suddenly became nervous. Go and get the daimyo-sama. Minazuki Yuki said softly to the 2 guardian ninjas. Without asking any questions, they directly supported the daimyo from the left and right sides and let him sit in the sedan. The 4 people in the second class, led by Minazuki Yuki, spread out into a diamond formation and stood in front, staring at the road ahead with all their concentration. There, a man with strange behavior was jumping towards here. Judging from his movements alone, there is nothing particularly strange about that man, but his outfit is really weird, wearing an orange mask on his face. There are some irregular black lines painted on the mask, and there is only a dark hole in the right eye, as if there is no need for the left eye at all. He was wearing a coat that reached down to his knees. It was not buttoned up in the front, but was tied loosely with a thick white belt. How should I describe this kind of dress and actions? It's like being a clown. But Itachi's instinct told him that this man was definitely not as simple as he looked. His reaction immediately affected other people around him, and a guard couldn't help but asked from behind, "Hey, are you alright? I'm going to confirm now. Please wait a moment." Minazuki Yuki replied. During this period, the masked man still approached here with a very relaxed look. When he reached not far from the second class, he suddenly stopped and raised his right hand. "I'm sorry, I have something to ask you. Is it convenient for you guys?" His voice sounded very leisurely, even a little funny, and he didn't seem to be nervous at all. So Minazuki Yuki unconsciously relaxed a little, but still asked as usual, "This road has been blocked today. How did you get in?" "Huh? Is that so?" The masked man spread his hands in an exaggerated manner, just like a real clown, attracting everyone's attention to him. This feeling. It's illusion. Teacher Minazuki, Itachi, who sensed the chakra fluctuations, immediately shouted. However, it was already too late. Minazuki Yuki beside him was already stiff and unable to move. And it's not just him. Itachi sensed carefully that even the daimyo and followers behind him, as well as the two guardian ninja, were all under the illusion. Oh, someone can actually break free from my illusion. The hollow in the mask stared at Itachi, and his tone suddenly changed. The somewhat silly voice just now suddenly turned into a calm tone, and there are still two people. Well, hearing that he was not the only one who blocked the opponent's Jinjutsu, Itachi couldn't help but hold his breath and immediately began to search for the other person's chakra and aura. What a good thing you did. It's Izumo Tenma. By the time Itachi noticed it, his impulsive teammate had already rushed towards the opponent. Before rushing out, Itachi clearly saw his eyes looking at him for a moment. I'm good at illusions, so I won't fall into this level of magic. To this extent? You really dare to say that? The masked man whispered. He is laughing. Although he couldn't see his face at all, Itachi could feel that this guy was smiling. Pegasus. Itachi spoke hastily. When encountering an enemy, you should first calmly observe the combat effectiveness of both the enemy and ourselves, and objectively judge the situation. Izumo Tenma ignored Itachi's voice, and when the masked man murmured lowly, he stabbed his throat with a kunai. Succeeded. What happened? Izumo Tenma suddenly panicked. His weapon clearly penetrated the enemy's neck, but the opponent showed no pain at all, and not even a drop of blood flowed out. It was as if his entire right hand had penetrated the masked man's body. A ninja who can't do this. PFFT. An arm suddenly penetrated from behind Izumo Tenma's chest. Guaya. Izumo Tenma's body slowly floated up, and his mouth began to make strange sounds that were not like those made by humans. This is not an illusion. The evidence is that a large amount of blood is pouring out of the teammates' bodies at this time. Itachi's eyes suddenly began to shake rapidly. Guaya. The body hanging on the arm convulsed violently, but soon gradually became quiet again, and finally became motionless. Those who want to make meritorious deeds, but just rush forward without a strategy, are doomed to die early. This is the reality of the ninja world. The masked man looked at the corpse's eyes looking into the void, but even if I tell you now, it's already too late. After finishing speaking, he shook his arm casually. Boom. The body of his teammate fell heavily to the ground. Looking at his companion's eyes, that no longer had any light, Itachi felt as if his heart was being violently impacted at the same time. As expected, you didn't fall for the attack. You didn't rush forward stupidly like that brat. Instead, you calmly observed the power gap between you and me. You are truly worthy of it, Uchiha Itachi. How do you know my name? I think as long as it's about Uchiha, nothing can be hidden from me. The masked man changed his previous leisurely look, and his words and deeds began to become crisper. My target is the old man's life. If you are willing to pretend that you didn't see it, I can spare your life. Although the other person's tone did not contain any threatening meaning, Itachi still felt the pressure of being tightly bound all over his body. In front of the masked man at this time, he felt like a frog being stared at by a snake, unable to control his body freely. I don't know whether the other party put some pressure on him, or whether he instinctively felt the power gap between them, so he was suppressing resistance. Or is it because the brain is desperately trying to analyze the incredible phenomenon just now, so all the blood in the body is concentrated in the brain? Itachi couldn't give a clear answer to his current physical condition. No matter how hard he gritted his teeth, he still couldn't control his body. This is the first time in his life that he has encountered such a thing. However, even so, just when the other party was about to pass him by, Itachi still opened his throat desperately and said with all his strength, I am a ninja from Konoha village. Chapter 95. I'm a ninja from the Leaf Village. After hearing these words, the masked man who was heading straight towards the daimyo slowly stopped and turned his head slightly to look at Itachi. Can you say what you just said again? I'm a ninja from Konoha village. Itachi's voice seemed a little hoarse, but after saying it for the first time, it didn't seem that difficult to say it again. Does that mean you want to die now? Dead. Such a word vaguely appeared in Itachi's mind, and it felt as if this was the first time that the word death was associated with him. You will become an excellent ninja in the future. There is no need to rush to die here. The masked man seemed to have a special tolerance for Itachi, but then he looked at Itachi with the hole in the mask and said, but if you really still want to die, I won't stop you. Pressure. The dangerous aura that seemed like death would come in the next second suddenly hid my face. Get moving. Get moving. Itachi has never been so eager to control his body. Well, because of his eagerness, he even made a moan-like sound from his throat. Fortunately, his body finally reacted slightly, and before he even had time to take out the kunai, Itachi directly raised his right fist and swung it at the masked man's face. Cool. However, the result was that the masked man did not make any movement, but Itachi's fist just passed through the opponent's face just like Izumo Tenma just now. It was clear that the opponent was right in front of him, but he couldn't feel anything from the fist he swung out. It even made Itachi start to wonder if he had also fallen into the opponent's illusion. Do you really want to die? Looking at Itachi's movements, the masked man was silent for a moment, then stretched out his arm to grab Itachi. Then I will make it happen. Halfway through his words, just when his palm was about to touch Itachi's face, he suddenly stopped in a daze, and then kept this posture, and turned his head to look into the woods. This chakra, a voice that I don't know how to describe came from under the mask, Hatake Kakashi. After saying that, the masked man's eyes returned to Itachi from the woods. Congratulations, you saved your life, Uchiha Itachi. As soon as he finished speaking, Itachi saw a ripple appear on his mask. That's right. Ripples like water patterns appeared in the void. The next moment, Itachi saw something that subverted his understanding for the first time in his life. With the black hole on the mask as a center, the ripples in the air became bigger and bigger, and finally they were like the flow of water after the plug was pulled out of the bathtub. The masked man's body seemed to gradually shrink into a point, and was gradually absorbed by the black hole, breathed into the void. Itachi was stunned when he saw this scene. What is this? Or is it true that he has been under an illusion? Four figures suddenly appeared. Itachi seemed to be belatedly, and looked up with a somewhat stiff movement, and found that these 4 people also had masks on their faces, but fortunately, they were more familiar animal masks. It is Anbu. Are you okay? Seeing him like this, one of the 4 Anbu couldn't help but reach out and push his shoulder. Itachi moved his eyes again and saw that the other person was a white-haired young man wearing a fox mask. The other 3 people immediately started walking around to remove the Jinjutsu from the Daimyo, Guardian Nin and others. Hey, what happened? The Daimyo who woke up saw the corpses and bloodstains on the ground at a glance and immediately screamed in fright. Everyone except me suddenly fell under the illusion. A voice came from Itachi's ear. I was delayed because I helped them remove the illusion. Sorry, we are late. Looking at the Anbu wearing a fox mask who was talking, Itachi was a little dazed for a moment. Hatake Kakashi. The Anbu in the fox mask visibly stiffened and then immediately looked directly at Itachi. How do you know this name? Although the other party did not admit it, Itachi's intuition told him that the person in front of him was the Kakashi Hatake that the masked man mentioned. Itachi. Alright. My father's steady and powerful voice came from across the paper sliding door. Lying alone in the room, despite the warmth of the quilt wrapped tightly around him, Itachi could not stop shivering. Due to such an accident, the Daimyo immediately returned to the capital, and his visit to Konoha village was postponed. After listening to the reports from the Enbu and Minazuki Yuki, the top management of Konohagakure decided, for some unknown reason, to call Itachi in a few days to report, and immediately sent Itachi back as soon as they returned to the village. Home. However, when Itachi returned home, he only felt that his whole body was exhausted. He didn't want to eat, didn't want to talk, and wasn't even in the mood to tease the cute Oyu, so he went straight back to the house and got into bed. He didn't eat dinner and went straight to his room to sleep. He's already a ninja, and sooner or later something like this will happen to him. But he is only 8 years old. A child of this age should be playing with friends at a ninja school. My mother's worried voice reached my ears. Itachi wrapped himself tightly in the quilt, his heart filled with disappointment in himself. If a teammate dies, he dies in front of himself. The only one who could save him at that time was himself, but he just stood there and watched, unable to do anything. This shows how good he is. There is absolutely no overlap between my father's tone and focus and my mother's. Because you are excellent, you can be valued by senior officials, and be entrusted with the important task of protecting the daimyo. It is precisely because the task is important enough that dangers arise. Only by experiencing such many life and death situations can you become a leader more quickly, a ninja of his own. The firm and ruthless words penetrated Itachi's heart through the warm quilt. Not enough, not enough. Because I'm not mature enough, my teammates died like this. Because I'm not mature enough, that is why my father said this. Strength. Itachi has never been so thirsty for power as now. Power enough to defeat that masked man. Can't you just let him work under you? No. I already have plans for his future. But don't worry, he will definitely be able to get through this. His father's firm refusal was like a sharp thorn. Itachi clutched the quilt tightly and covered his ears, as if to escape from his father's voice. Uncontrollable emotions turned into painful moans pouring out of his throat. The body also began to tremble uncontrollably. This is not because of fear, but because of anger at being powerless. A sense of powerlessness, defeat, emptiness, disappointment, anger at all the feelings I have, strength, exclamation mark. It's not enough just to be strong enough to protect your teammates. The power that is enough to give my father recognition and peace of mind is not enough. He also wants to be stronger, and able to surpass that masked man. Do not. It is a power that can surpass everyone in this world. Then he can solve all the conflicts and disputes in the world by himself. Itachi closed his eyes tightly. I felt something hot suddenly appeared inside my eyelids. He knew very well that those were definitely not tears, but something even hotter. Bang dang. Bang dang. At the top of the back of the neck, the blood vessels began to beat violently. There seemed to be something like fire flowing everywhere in the body, and finally gathered at the place where the blood vessels beat intense mostly, and then rushed into the eyeballs in one breath. People of the Uchiha clan are born with fire-type chakra, but this was the first time Itachi felt such hot power. As smart as he is, he has already foreseen the meaning of these states in his body. He slowly sat up with his eyes closed, then opened his eyes little by little. Red. Everything in front of him seemed to be dyed bright red. On the opposite side of the paper sliding door, there are 3 flames of different sizes swaying. They are father and mother, as well as Sasuke's life. He stared at the 3 flames. The 3 people were located in the bright red scenery. If he continued to concentrate on staring, he felt that he could even see the beating of their hearts. Suddenly a wave of dizziness came over me. Itachi immediately closed his eyes and began to take a deep breath. When he slowly opened his eyes, the scene in front of him had returned to its original state. Sharingan. The strength gained from extreme unwillingness and pain. Is this the secret of the Uchiha clan? The man wearing the mask appeared in Itachi's mind again. He clearly remembered that there was also a scholar eye hidden under the hollow of the mask. Next time, I won't lose again. After whispering, the 2 black Magatama dyed his eyes bright red again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. The first meeting of the little pig deer butterfly. The daimyo was attacked on the territory of Konoha. Senju Mayuki's true ally Hayakura's position in Tsunade village was further strengthened, and the dispute with Kumoga village entered a period of quieting down. A series of things seemed to happen one after another, but fortunately, these are just things that senior executives need to consider. For Senju Mayuki, life is no different from the past. If there is anything special, it is that today is the Shikamaru Good Friday once a month. Teacher Shikaku, are you going out? As soon as the three of them arrived at the door of Narashikaku's house, they saw their family neatly dressed, as if they were about to go out. If that's the case, then we'll have another day. No, we are just waiting for you. Narashikaku quickly stopped them, and then explained with some embarrassment in the doubtful eyes of the three people. You should also know that in addition to our Nara clan, there are 2 other families in the village, who are familiar with us. Oh, I know. It must be Akimichi and the Yamanaka clan. Together with teacher Shikaku, they are the famous Inoshika butterfly of Konoha village. Hehe, that's right. As Narashikaku said, he took Shikamaru's little hand and walked out, and then explained, while waiting for his wife, in order to promote the bond between the 3 tribes, the descendants of Zuludi must start to know and get along with each other when they are sensible. Today is just the opportunity for everyone to have time. Oh, are you going to meet the little pig deer butterfly from the other 2 tribes? Izumi's eyes suddenly lit up. She glanced at Shikamaru, who had been so blind since just now, and the interest on her face increased instead of decreasing. Teacher Shikaku, although it's a bit rude to say this, can you join us in this party? Don't worry, we will never interfere with you. Hahaha, of course. Didn't I just say that we are just waiting for you here? Didn't we? Yeah, thank you Shikaku-sensei. Izumi was very excited. After all, it was the first meeting of the next generation of pig deer butterflies. Hinata Takuma nodded indifferently. Anyway, he was the backdrop wherever he went, so it didn't matter anymore. As for Senju Shinetsu, he looked at Shikamaru again, and then slowly stretched his hand towards his pocket in his increasingly frightened eyes. Well, seeing his action, Shikamaru hurriedly covered his mouth with a pop, and then dragged Narashikaku desperately to let him go quickly. Don't worry, Shikamaru, mother hasn't come out yet. Narashikaku was a little surprised by his son's sudden change, but he was more determined. We have to wait for mom to come out before we can go together. By the way, wasn't his wife waiting with him just now? Why did he suddenly have to wait for her to go out again? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Hello, seniors. We are Izumi Uchiha, Mr. Shikaku's student Senju Shinetsu Hyuga Takuma. The meeting place is in a booth of the roast pork queue. There are 2 baking pans that serve as tables. The 3 heads of the house and Senju Mayuki are kneeling on both sides of the baking pan outside. Inside are the housewives and 3 children. Although it is not completely private, because there is no door, it is separated by walls on both sides and the space is quite large, which is perfect for such a family gathering. In fact, children should not come to such a greasy place for their first meeting, but after learning that students from Narashikaku would also be present, Akimichi Chosa suggested changing the meeting place here. Originally, today is the seniors family gathering, and we shouldn't interrupt it, but Kwan was a little embarrassed when he said this, but he still said it with a slightly red face. When I heard Mr. Shikaku say that the next generation of Inigara butterfly will meet for the first time, we are really looking forward to it and want to meet it. I hope the seniors can forgive us for our rashness. Hehe, it's okay, it's okay. Akimichi Tings looks very rough in appearance, but he is the most enthusiastic when he speaks. After listening to Izumi's words, he immediately laughed and said, actually, the 2 of us have wanted to meet you for a long time. Luciu, this guy, always brags to us every time we meet. What tasks have you completed recently, or what honors have you received? Do you think we can? Both of them can't help but want to go back to take care of their students. Ha ha ha. Haha, yes, you don't have to be so restrained. You are Shikaku's students, so you are the same as our family. Although Yamanaka Heiichi was not as passionate as Akimichi Chosa, his attitude was just as kind, and his eyes were full of gentleness when he looked at the 3 of them. While they were complimenting each other, the mothers inside were also discussing them in low voices. I've always heard about it, but today I finally officially met it. Speaking of which, those 2 young men are really handsome. That's right. There's that little girl. She's so pretty and cute, and she talks so sweetly. It's hard to imagine that she could be. Really, I was actually shocked when I first heard the list opposite the mothers. Shikamaru looked to his left and right. One is staring at the barbecue and drooling, and the other is secretly looking at the 2 handsome guys on the side. Ugh. Shikamaru sighed silently, and then whispered to the 2 people around him, hey, you 2. Choji. What? After both of them looked over, Shikamaru glanced to the side. After seeing that none of the three guys paid attention to this side, he lowered his voice again and said, whether you understand it or not, remember what I say, those three guys, except for the white-eyed one on the outside, the other two are not good people. Choji. Ino curled her lips after hearing this, and then responded unceremoniously, is it because you are not as handsome as them, that you slander them like this? Shikamaru asked Mark face directly, what the hell kind of logic is this? And I just said clearly that there is a man and a woman, okay? How come they are not as handsome as them? Where does this we come from? Yes, Shikamaru, my mother said good children shouldn't speak ill of others behind their backs. Dingsy seemed to understand something at this time and added, just brother, can you look at others when you say this and stop staring at the barbecue? That's right, even though you look like we are the same age, you are actually the bad guy who says bad things behind our backs, right? Shikamaru's mood suddenly exploded. Difficult. Scalp tingling. Why does this woman speak so directly? Forget it, I've already told you what I said. If it's difficult, don't do it. Why waste time and saliva with two idiots? What are you talking about, Shikamaru, with your friends? Can you let me listen too? Shikamaru's body suddenly stiffened. When he slowly turned his head, he realized that his father's table had started eating at some point, and Izumi Uchiha, who was only a little across the aisle from them, came over at some point and was looking at them with interest. What made his scalp numb even more was that Kwan's words attracted the attention of the most hateful guy again. It was as if the whole space became quiet instantly. When he met Senju in Shikamaru's desperate eyes, Senju Mayuki seemed to suddenly remember and slowly took out a large lollipop from his pocket and then handed it to Shikamaru with a smile. Shikamaru, you don't want to lose face in front of the friends you just met, right? Although the other party did not speak, Shikamaru could clearly see from the other party's expression and eyes that this was what he wanted to express. He really wanted to have the courage to reject this hateful man once and for all. But when I looked up again at Kwan, who seemed to know nothing, the courage I had just mustered up instantly disappeared without a trace. He still remembers what the mothers across from him just said. This hateful woman took the other two captive mothers in just a few minutes. Once the war starts, no one will be unlucky today. Suppressing the grief and anger in his heart, Shikamaru finally smiled an ugly smile. Can I share this lollipop with my friends? A dead Taoist friend will not die. Poor Taoist, who told you to say that about me just now? Of course can. Upon hearing this, Senju Mayuki immediately divided the lollipop into 3 parts. Anyway, I never planned to let him eat it all. Wow, you know how to share with your friends at such a young age. Shikamaru will definitely be a reliable man when he grows up. That's right, Yoshino, you really raised a good son, really? Ha 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 ha. Not only the mothers, but even the 3 fathers over there couldn't help laughing with emotion when they saw this scene. Shikamaru, hehehe. Yes, everyone is happy, I'm laughing too, I'm fine. Chapter 97. The third Hokage is summoned alone. I heard that you are working in the prison now. Taking advantage of today's happiness, the 3 men were given the rare permission to have some drinks. Soon they saw that Akimichi Chosa's cheeks were flushed, and he started to lose control of his tongue. I think that place is too boring, and so do you, Shikaku. Seeing your students wasting their time in a place like that, why don't you go and find San? Okay. Hey, I'm going to stop eating now. I'm just talking to the kids. It wasn't until his mouth was full that Yamanaka Heiichi stopped holding the chopsticks in his hand and then smiled at the 3 minors opposite him and said, you are doing a good job now. Don't listen to this idiot's nonsense. That's right. Also, because he drank some wine, Shikaku's face also looked a little drunk, and he spoke more and bolder than usual. You are still too young and your progress is too fast. It is really not suitable for you to improve in a short period of time. Otherwise, not only will it be of no benefit to you, but it will also cause certain troubles for the village. In short, take this easy job as an opportunity and seize it. Accumulate and improve your strength as much as possible, and when you get old, you will naturally have everything you should have. Upon hearing this, Senju Shinzuki and the others immediately put down their chopsticks and bowed their heads in unison. Yes, Shikaku-sensei. What a polite child. A woman's perspective has always been strange. It's obviously just a simple act of respect, but in the eyes of several mothers, it has become a plus point, no matter how good it is. It's just that he is so handsome, has excellent strength, and is favored by Hokage-sama. If only Mayano had been born a few years earlier. Shikamaru, spring. The meal was so noisy that it lasted for nearly 2 hours before it was over. Overall, this meeting was a great time for both the guests and the host. Everyone was very satisfied and happy. They all expressed that they must get together more often like today if they have the opportunity in the future. Swish. Just when a group of people had just finished paying and walked out of the door, they suddenly saw a masked figure suddenly appear in front of them. And boo? The faces of the 3 men walking at the front instantly became serious. The mothers behind them all immediately grabbed their children when they saw it. Narashikaku even asked directly in a deep voice, "What's wrong, Hokage-sama?" "Yes, Shikaku-senpai." The Enbu first nodded respectfully to the 3 pig deer butterflies and then looked behind them. "Senju Shinetsu, Hokage-sama has summoned you for something. Please go immediately." Senju Mayuki, pointing at himself, "I? Yes." The Enbu's voice was low and crisp, which made Senju Mayuki wonder for a while. The 3 Inoshika butterfly were here. Why would it be their turn to find him? "Since the Hokage has summoned me, you should go there quickly." Narashikaku reacted quickly. No matter what happened, it was not a problem for Anbu to wait like this. "Yes." Senju Mayuki immediately responded, then nodded with the seniors and left with the Anbu. Only a group of people who were talking and laughing just now were left in place, but the lively atmosphere was no longer there. After all, although there have been notifications from Anbu in the past, they were all summoned by a class as a whole. This is the first time for individual notifications like this. Okay, stop guessing. In the end, Narashikaku stood up and said, "It's not like you don't know Hokage-sama's attitude. I believe it won't be anything bad." After saying that, he looked at Kwan, who was obviously upset and could only pretend to be relaxed and comfort her. "If you are really worried, go and have a look. If you can't enter the office, you can still wait downstairs." PFFT. Seeing Narashikaku wink at him in a funny way, Izumi felt relieved and then nodded vigorously to him and then rushed towards the Hokage building. Then, "Teacher Shikaku, well, you can go too." "Yes." After Hinata Takuma finished speaking, he quickly chased after them, leaving the 3 men looking at their backs with emotion on their faces. What a team with deep feelings. That's right. We are almost catching up to where we were back then. You are already so old, yet you still put money on your face. Hahaha. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. On the 3rd Hokage's side, time went back half an hour when Senju Mayuki and his party were still eating and drinking in the cubicle. What? No. In the Hokage's office, before the old man could finish speaking, Tsunade started shouting dissatisfied, "That fishing fire alone is enough to give me a headache, and you actually give me a mission." He don't refuse so quickly. Although he is his disciple, the children have grown up, and now he is asking for help from others, so the 3rd Hokage had no choice but to laugh a few times with his old face. For the village, the Kurama clan is a very important family. It took them several generations to produce a genius with such a special physique. The child named Yakumo is very important to their entire clan, so they asked for it. "I'm here." While smiling dryly, he looked at Tsunade's reaction and saw that she had no intention of turning around and leaving immediately. The 3rd Hokage smiled slightly and continued, "What's more, if the child is cured, it will definitely be of great benefit not only to the Kurama clan, but also to the entire village. If there can really be one more powerful illusion master." TSK. Although she looked very impatient on the surface, in fact, it was impossible for Tsunade to ignore her as she said. After all, no matter what she said, Konoha village still held a heavy weight in her heart. As long as it involved the village, she didn't need anyone else to urge her. She would find a way to do it herself. "Really, I'm not a machine." Then let's put it this way. "But I definitely don't have time. Let that brat try it." "Oh, you mean?" The 3rd Hokage's eyes immediately raised slightly. Did he know that Senju Mayuki was learning from Tsunade, but he didn't expect that he had already progressed to the point where Tsunade could push out the top bag? "That's right, that brat has been studying with me for so long. I can't say how powerful he is. He's just so-so. If there's something he can't solve by then, just let him ask me." Hehe, that's fine. I'll feel relieved with your words. I knew it would be better to go directly to Zio Zenitsu. Thinking of this old man, I immediately felt a toothache. Old man, I'm 60 years old. It's so embarrassing that you have to make smiles to your own students. Okay, I'll leave if nothing happens. I am still busy. Tsunade muttered, and just about to open the door, she suddenly thought of something and turned around and said, by the way, until the Yuho matter is resolved, if you need any medical related matters in the future, just go to him directly. If you really can't solve it, come to me. Bang. Hehe. Although Tsunade's attitude was not good, the old man was not angry. After all, he is his student, and according to the report from the medical department, since the little siren was handed over to Tsunade, the child has indeed been working almost all day long, and it is understandable that he has a little temper. Go and bring Senju Mayuki here to meet me. Yes. Chapter 98. Lully asks for a gift. Almost an hour later, at the door of the Hokage building. How's it going? Does Hokage-sama have any mission for you? Izumi has been waiting here since Senju Mayuki entered. When he saw him coming out, he hurriedly greeted him. It's a mission, that's it. Thinking of the conversation in the Hokage's office just now, Senju Mayuki's face suddenly showed some indescribable emotion. Melancholy? Kuramiyakumo, that's it. Just leave it to yourself. Although it was Tsunade's recommendation, no matter how I thought about it, I felt that this thing was so magical. No matter what, it is the hope of the entire clan. Just leave it to a little guy like me who has no hair at all. I don't know if the Kurama clan will explode on the spot if they find out. Is it? After hearing what he said, Kwan's doubts suddenly became more serious. Well, you'd better come with me. You'll know when you get there. Ah. Is this appropriate? Isn't this a task assigned to you by Hokage alone? Although he said this, in fact, Izumi's pace was no slower than Senju Mayuki. 10 minutes later, in a separate ward of Konoha Hospital. Looking at the little lolly with fair skin like a porcelain doll on the hospital bed, Kwan's eyes immediately found Senju Mayuki next to him. Although he didn't say anything, the expression on his face was very clear. This is your mission. Ah, yeah. He dealt with it vaguely, and then walked straight to the bed without waiting for her to say anything else. Then he smiled in the girl's slightly confused eyes and said, is your name Yakumo? I'm the medical ninja sent by Lord Hokage to treat you. This uncle can prove it for me. Hearing his words, the square-faced man next to him who had been following him immediately nodded and said, that's right. Although you are young, Senju Mayuki's name should be known to all ninjas in the entire village. He is deeply trusted by Hokage-sama. But I didn't expect that you actually got Tsunade-sama's true biography. It's really great. It's surprising. After listening to the square-faced uncle's words, the little girl who was only 4 years old looked up and down Senju Mayuki. Then her eyes turned to Izumi and Hinata Takuma, and finally she mustered up the courage to gently nodded. Hello, brother, I'm Kuramiyakumo. My body will trouble you a lot from now on. Although her voice is not loud, her temperament is calm and generous when she speaks, giving people the impression that this girl is already very sensible and polite at such a young age. Sure enough, he is worthy of being a child taught by a big family. As far as preschool education is concerned, how can an ordinary family compare with it? He was thinking this in his heart, but he didn't show any signs on the surface. Instead, he smiled at her. Don't worry, now that I have taken over this task, I can't say that I can definitely cure you, but I will definitely try my best. After saying that, he asked the nurse in the room to remove all the infusion needles and monitoring equipment from her body. He had seen all those things. They were nothing more than normal saline and electrocardiogram monitoring, which were very common medical methods. Now that he had taken over, there was no need for these. Next, I'm going to conduct a comprehensive inspection on you. After the nurse pushed all the things out, Senju Mayuki motioned for her to lie down on the bed while talking. Then, can you ask them to go out first? Looking at Kuramiyakumo's slightly red face, Senju Mayuki was a little confused. You don't like them too? Or, what's wrong? While he was asking questions, Hinata Takuma turned around and walked out indifferently. The square-faced man glanced at him and immediately turned around and went out. Kwan, standing still. No. It wasn't until the two male figures disappeared from the door that Kurama said in a low voice, "For physical examination, you have to take off your clothes. But, can you not have so many people, Spring, still want to take off your clothes?" Hi. Senju Mayuki was stunned for a moment, then shook her head in a funny way, and explained to her, "Where are you thinking? I'm a medical ninja. I use medical ninjutsu to examine the body. There is no need to take off your clothes." Oh. Kurama, who blushed greatly, hurriedly stopped saying anything, and lay down on his back as required. Seeing this, Senju Mayuki stopped talking. Instead, she took a breath, pressed her hands on her chest, and then slowly injected chakra into her body. Heart, spleen and stomach, liver, lungs. Fortunately, the beds in the special care unit are specially arranged according to the patient's condition, and he can still manage it with his current height of less than 140 centimeters. Cool. 5 minutes later, Senju Mayuki let out a long breath again, and then took his hand back. "How about it?" Kwan, who had been staring at him, immediately asked. After hearing her voice, Kurama, who had kept his eyes tightly closed on the bed, immediately opened his eyes and looked over, with obvious desire and hope on his face, as well as a little bit of worry that was difficult to eliminate. Senju Mayuki pondered for a moment, thought about it, and decided not to hide it from her. "According to my examination, the organs in her body are indeed a little weaker than normal people. This should be congenital. There should be no problem in a normal life, but she cannot exercise too strenuously." And when he heard what he said, the sparkle in Kurama's eyes suddenly dimmed, and he lay motionless on the bed. But, seeing her like this, Senju Mayuki first attracted her attention with one sentence, and then when she looked over with renewed hope, he asked her, "I heard from your tribe that you really wanted to be a ninja, so you went to see the Hokage, right?" The voice was low but firm. "Why? You are just a girl. You can obviously live a completely different and peaceful life. You do not understand." Kurama's reaction was suddenly sharp, which immediately caused the square-faced man outside to push open the door and burst in. "Sorry." After glancing at the square-faced uncle, Kurama whispered an apology to Senju Mayuki. "I didn't mean to be like this. I was just a little too excited." "It's okay." Senju Mayuki shook her head slightly. "That was just a personal question of mine. If you don't want to talk about it, you can just ignore it." Kurama bit his lip and glanced at the square-faced man again, but finally said in a low voice, "Our family is mainly proficient in illusions. I just heard from the elders that compared to ordinary illusions, our family will have an awakened one with a special physique every few generations." "Oh, that means you are the awakened one of this generation, right?" Kurama's two little hands gradually clasped tightly. "My parents, relatives, and everyone in the clan are all looking forward to me growing up and carrying forward the jinjutsu of the Kurama clan. Such me must become a ninja, one who is so good that my parents and clan members, all jinjutsu ninjas, are proud of me. You should know that this goal will never be easy. I'm not afraid. This is not a question of whether you are afraid or not, but if you want to become a ninja that surpasses everyone else, you must put in sweat and hard work that exceeds all your knowledge, and even exceeds your imagination. I'm not afraid." Kurama's voice was as firm as ever. "As long as I can become an excellent ninja, I'm willing to give everything I have." Senju Mayuki nodded silently after hearing this. He didn't notice what Izumi and Hinata were thinking. He only saw that, although the square-faced man didn't say a word, the knuckles of the fists hanging down by his sides were starting to turn white. "It is good." This was the first time she met someone who was so eager to kill someone. Senju Mayuki stopped being pretentious and said to her directly and seriously, "From today on, I will do everything I can and know to treat you, and you are no longer the eldest lady of the Kurama clan. From now on, you will only have one identity, and that is my patient. You must be mentally prepared!" Chapter 99 The Treasures of Heaven and Earth in Naruto. Ping 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 swoosh boom. Whoosh. Bang bang bang, get up. Come again. In the training ground east of Konoha village, Hinata Takuma, who had just been kicked 10 meters away, patted the dust on his body. He really wanted to protest, but when he looked at the expressionless Izumi, he finally sighed. After taking a breath, He once again put on a soft fist posture and faced him. It's been a month. From that day, when I took over Kurama-Yakumo's task for a month, that guy disappeared immediately after every shift. They all knew that he went to recuperate the little girl's body, but, just because you know it, doesn't mean that some people can accept it. It's been a month. Every time she gets upset, she treats me as a target, and she practices for a whole day. If you are dissatisfied with him, go ahead and torment him. It's already hard enough to see you all acting like shit every day. As a result, I still have to be kicked around like a sandbag all day long. Although I'm 3 years older than you, to be honest, I'm still just a child and my mother's baby. Ping ping ping. Ding ding, clang, swish bang. Come again. Bang come again. Bang again. Oh, Matsuki-kun, please hurry up. I really can't bear it anymore. Asterisk 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 for a human being, internal organs are far more important than muscles and bones. So the question is, people with insufficient strength can improve it through exercises, such as biceps, deltoid muscles, abdominal muscles, gluteal muscles, and even spongy muscles and sphincter muscles. What about internal organs? What to do if the internal organs are weak? Regarding this point, after reading countless books and doing countless experiments, Senju Mayuki's answer is, rather than aimless training, he felt that what Kurama-Yakumo needed now was to improve the current situation of his internal organs in a targeted manner. Otherwise, when she grows up, as her body's bones and muscles grow, she will need more ki and blood supply. And her body is not strong enough to support high intensity training to enhance her physique and ki and blood. Once a slightly strenuous exercise occurs, the only way to make up for the lack of ki and blood is through overloading the heart and lungs, such as a sharp acceleration of the heartbeat, or a reduction in blood supply to the gastrointestinal tract, etc. What's more, when girls grow up, they will have a debut that continues to bleed, and this phenomenon will become more obvious and serious. Once the internal organs are ischemic, their functions will be further weakened, but they still have to complete a series of important tasks such as digestion and absorption, metabolism, immune defense, neuroregulation, and endocrine hormone regulation at all times. If things go on like this, the internal organs, that were not very good in the first place, will only become worse and worse, forming a vicious cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to deal with. Fortunately, as a big family that is almost as famous as Uchiha, the Kurama clan is not short of money. Coupled with the relationship between Senju Mayuki and Narashikaku, all kinds of exotic animals and rare medicinal materials, as long as money can buy them, will definitely appear in boxes in front of him within 3 days, as long as he opens his mouth. Here, this is for today. A bowl of dark, steaming unknown medicinal soup was brought over. Hearing his voice, Kurama-Yakumo, who was kneeling down to relax and perform breathing exercises as required, suddenly frowned subconsciously. However, after quietly swallowing, the little loli opened her eyes firmly, then picked up the medicine bowl and drank it with her eyes closed. If you let it out yourself, you have to drink it, no matter how bitter it is. Go do. This taste, it seems like it's definitely not much better. No need to ask, just look at the little loli's little face, that is as wrinkled as a bitter melon, and you will know that the taste of this bowl of medicinal soup is definitely not good. Goo doo. I closed my eyes and drank a few big sips. Then I immediately picked up the cold drink on the side and took a few big sips, which finally relieved the bitter taste in my mouth. Yuck, seeing the little loli retching while stubbornly continuing to maintain the posture of breathing training, Senju Mayuki really admired this girl in her heart. Kurama-Yakumo, although he is just an original character in the anime, he is a real person in this world, and he believes that all the friends who have watched that episode will not easily forget this girl with a terrifying talent for illusions. Speaking of which one is more awesome? Kurama-Yakumo's control of the 5 senses or Itachizutsukuyomi? This question occasionally came up in Senju Mayuki's mind, but after thinking about it a few times with no results, she stopped thinking about it. Because Itachi is a guy with a world in mind, and thinks too much and too far, and ordinary things cannot restrict him at all. Not like Kurama-Yakumo now, perfect age, when you are a good loli, Perfect mentality. People with obsessions are easier to control. The character is also perfect, valuing other people's feelings even more important than one's own life. With so many advantages and his long-term hard work, he will definitely be a good subordinate when he grows up. Of course, the premise is that he can really make Kurama Yakumo's health improve. Otherwise the Kurama clan is not a fool. How could it be possible to give away money and others? It's been a month. Seeing Kurama Yakumo, who immediately entered the training state according to his own requirements after drinking the medicinal soup, Senju Mayuki's eyes were full of admiration, but the specific effect of his treatment was still unclear today 1 month later. It's ready for acceptance. Pause for a moment and let me check you again. Kurama Yakumo opened his eyes immediately when he heard his voice, and then lay flat on the floor as he asked without saying a word. He's taking a gentle breath. He poured medical chakra into his hands. Relax, it's just a checkup. He whispered again, and then placed his hands on Kurama Yakumo's chest. Thump, thump. During the examination, Kurama Yakumo, who had his eyes open, seemed to feel that his heartbeat was so heavy. This time it took much longer than before. It took a full 7 or 8 minutes before Senju Mayuki breathed a sigh of relief and retracted his hands. When Kurama Yakumo saw this, she immediately sat up. Although she didn't speak, her uneasy mood could be seen just from her eyes. Well, there has indeed been some progress compared to the first inspection. Although not much. It's really not much, Senju Mayuki felt. Keep going at this speed. If you drink medicine like this every day, you may be able to progress by % after a year. This is without taking into account drug tolerance. But seeing the little Lali's eyes brighten up and become excited immediately, it's better not to say such things to her. It seems that these ordinary medicines alone are not enough. We have to consider some special treasures. So, are there any good things in this world that you are familiar with that will shock you when you hear them? 1. The Yang escape of a 6 paths old man. 2. Become a tailed beast Jinkriki. 3. Transplant the cells of the ancestors of Thousand Hands. 4. Laulan's Dragon Vein Chakra. 5. Grell ore from the Ancient Kingdom. 6. Practice Magic 7 Orochimaru. 8. First, one can be eliminated directly. This is the privilege of princes, and no one else has to think about it. 2 can be considered. But there is definitely no hope now, because I can beat him. Moreover, the war between the countries has just ceased. If anyone dares to offer me your tailed beast at this time, it is almost certain that the 4th ninja war will begin immediately. 3. Don't even think about it. Even if the 3rd generation old man was willing, Kurama Yakumo's physique would definitely not be able to withstand the torment of Asura cells. Don't kill people again when you fail to save them. Chapter 100 The Spear of Heaven Pit. Well, you can try 4 and 5. It's just that the sealing technique Minato set up in Laulan is a problem. As I said before, Senju Shinjutsu's sealing technique is really not good. As for Greer ore, you need a certain amount of patience and luck to find it. And if you want to use that thing, it seems that you need certain technical conditions to support it. As for 6, it is difficult to refine ordinary chakra, let alone magical chakra. 7. Let's not talk about whether Orochimaru has this strength. Even if he can really cure it, will this Koei little loli still be his? This means that the most reliable option is the 8th option. Thinking of this, a picture suddenly flashed in Senju Mayuki's mind. The wasteland, the huge pit, and the sparkling lake. He remembered clearly that Master Yu and Men clearly said that the water in that lake had extraordinary vitality. Although it is not sure whether it will have any effect on Kurama Yakumo's condition, it is better than relying on expensive medicinal materials to endure it now. Then let's set the target as that giant pit. Although the goal has been set, the key question is, where is the pit? When I was watching the anime, I only remembered that it was in a desolate land, but I had no impression of the specific location information. It seems that I can only find someone to ask. Fortunately, most people will not easily forget a special terrain like the giant pit once they have seen it. Another thing that needs to be considered is what kind of reason can he find to convince the 3rd generation old man to let him go out, and will the Kurama clan allow the eldest lady who is only 4 years old to leave the village with him? Well, let's determine the location first. At worst, we can just ask them to send someone to follow them. And just when Senju Mayuki's mind was in a mess, frowning and nodding for a while, Kurama Yakumo on the side was also secretly looking at him, and his mood was rising and relaxing along with his facial expressions. It was not until he finally saw him nodding confidently that he was completely relieved. It seems that brother Zenyu really has a way to treat himself, instead of deceiving himself in good faith to prevent himself from being sad. Asterisk 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 Teacher Lucasa. Narashikaku, who had just returned home, immediately turned his head when he heard the sound and smiled immediately when he saw the student next to him. It's Zenyu. Then he looked around again. Are you alone today? Yes, teacher, I have something to ask you today. Oh, no problem. Come in. The two of them entered the yard one after another. Shikamaru, who was lazily leaning against the doorpost to bask in the sun, was about to say hello to his father, but when he looked behind his father again, swish, one jump swoosh, a sprint disappeared. Huh. This kid, he only two men, one big and one small, smiled awkwardly at each other. Of course he knew why he ran away as soon as he saw him. Of course he also knew why he ran away when he saw him. HMM. After putting the plastic bag in his hand in the kitchen, Narashikaku returned to the main room, coughed dryly and said seriously, okay, if you have anything to ask, just ask. As long as I know and can tell you, I will definitely tell you. Of course, Senju Mayuki would not doubt Narashikaku's sincerity towards him. Teacher, you must have often gone out on missions before, right? Seeing Narashikaku nod, he continued to ask, then do you know or have heard of such a place? A huge circular pit in the middle of a wasteland. Inside the huge pit are lush woods, villages, and a very beautiful lake. Okay. As soon as he heard the word round giant pit, Narashikaku's brows moved subconsciously. After hearing the subsequent description, he immediately nodded clearly. You are talking about Tonika village. I know. I have been there too. It is indeed a very strange place, as if the huge pit has absorbed all the life around it. It is really hard to forget. While nodding, he said affirmatively, and after finishing, he asked casually, how did you know that place? And do you have any business with Tonika village? I don't have much impression of this name. I just heard my father say it a few words when chatting with businessman friends when I was young. As for the source of the news, the best and simplest way is naturally to blame that damn father. Teacher, you also know that I'm currently serving as the chief physician of Kurama Yakumo, the eldest lady of the Kurama clan. Oh yes. When he mentioned this, Narashikaku, who was always gentle and polite, interrupted him once in a rare moment. Matsuki, if possible, teacher hopes that you can cure Miss Yakumo's illness as much as possible. At this point, his expression became very serious. The Kurama clan is a big clan in the entire Konoha village, even bigger than any of our Inorika butterfly clans. If you can really cure the eldest lady of their clan, it will be of great benefit not only to the village, but also to your own future growth. In fact, there are some words Narashikaku feels that there is no need to say too much and clearly, because he believes that this student will definitely understand what he means. Although it is a bit early to say this now, if Senju Mayuki can really control the eldest lady of the Kurama clan, then when he grows up, Tsunade, Uchiha, Hinata, Inakacho, Kurama, and the third Hokage will full support. Orochimaru? Haha. He counts as a follicle. Even adding another Danzo won't do it. Aha. Senju Mayuki nodded while listening. It wasn't until Narashikaku finished speaking that he replied equally seriously, yes, teacher, I understand everything you said. The matter I came to ask you about today is related to Yakumo's body. When my father's friend talked about Tonika village that time, he once said that the lake water there has a special effect and seems to be able to warm people's bodies, so I wanted to give it a try. Oh. Narashikaku understood immediately when he heard this. He immediately stood up and took out a map from the drawer next to him. Then he pointed to an inconspicuous place in the northwest of the Land of Fire and in the middle of the Land of Oikawa and said, it's right here, a small country that almost no one has heard of. With the ninja's foot power, it can be reached in about 1.5 to 2 days. Having said this, he stopped and looked at Senju Mayuki again. What are you going to do? Go collect the water yourself? Or take Miss Yakumo with you? If it's the latter, the Kurama clan may not be able to agree easily. After all, it's the treasure that has been waiting for generations. This is exactly what Senju Mayuki has been thinking about, but after thinking about it, he still said firmly, for the sake of safety, and to not affect the effect of the lake to the greatest extent, I still think it is most appropriate to take Yakumo with us. Well, after hearing this, Narashikaku pointed his finger at the table and pondered for a while, then suddenly raised his head and said, okay, I will try to communicate with the leader of the Kurama clan. With your current reputation and strength, plus Ziluda's guarantee, I believe that guy Kang Yun will still give me this face, haha. Thank you, teacher. You kid, why are you saying thank you to me? As a teacher, I assent at your duty to help your children solve their problems. Narashikaku's emotions have always been relatively reserved. He felt a little embarrassed when he heard the student's thanks. Oh, by the way, I can't do anything about Hokage-sama. You have to deal with him yourself, of course. Senju Mayuki immediately nodded in agreement. Having said that, he also understood that how could Mr. Shikaku not know that the third Hokage, the most difficult level for others to deal with, was actually the best level to solve for him perhaps. This is what makes him feel more satisfied in this world than in his previous life. The teachers and students here really have a lifelong relationship, except for some big complaints with incomplete brain development. In this case, the next thing to consider is the accompanying people for this outing. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.